At my husband Logan's will reading, his mother Isabella smirked and said, "Everything belongs to me." The lawyer just smiled and replied, "Actually, he left you a special message." Her smirk vanished when she read, "I never thought my life would turn into something out of a courtroom drama. But here we are. Logan and I were married for 10 years. We built a happy life together, filled with love, laughter, and a cozy home we worked hard for. But the one dark spot in our life was his mother, Isabella. From the moment I met her, she made it clear she didn't like me. She always accused me of being after Logan's money, even though we both worked hard. The truth was, she just wanted to control him." Isabella was a controlling, cruel woman who treated Logan like a child who needed her approval for everything. He spent years trying to earn her love, but she only showed kindness when he obeyed her. Marrying me felt like betrayal to her. Despite everything, Logan still loved his mother and kept trying to make her happy. I never stood in their way, but I was always the one comforting him when her words hurt him. 6 months ago, Logan died after battling a long illness. We had time to prepare and talk about everything, including his will. He knew his mother would come after me, so he made sure to handle things properly. During the will reading, I sat in the lawyer's office, still heartbroken. Isabella sat across from me, dressed in fancy black clothes, acting like she was the grieving widow. She had barely spoken to me since Logan's death, except to insult me at the funeral, saying I'd be homeless soon. She truly believed that everything was hers. The lawyer started reading Logan's will. "To my beloved wife, I leave our home, our savings, and all my personal belongings." Isabella's smirk faded, but she kept acting smug, thinking the real money and investments were hers. Then the lawyer continued, "To my mother, Isabella, I leave." He paused and picked up a separate letter, a personal message. Isabella looked confused. "What?" The lawyer handed her the letter. She grabbed it, furious. As she read, her face turned red, and her hand shook. She slammed the paper down and yelled, "This is a joke." I asked, "What does it say?" The lawyer handed me a copy of the letter. I read Logan's words, feeling both sad and proud. "Mother, if you are reading this, you're probably expecting to take everything from my wife. But understand this, you never controlled me, and you won't control her. You spent my whole life trying to make me feel like I wasn't good enough. But I found peace knowing I built a life with someone who truly loved me, not for money, but for me. You never gave me that love, and because of that, I owe you nothing. Everything I have goes to my wife, the woman who stood by me when you never did." The room went silent. Isabella's hand shook as she pushed the letter away. "This is insane," she shouted. "He was sick. He didn't mean this." The lawyer calmly replied, "He was of sound mind when he wrote this, as he wished. You've been left with nothing." Isabella turned her rage at me. "You poisoned him against me. You made him hate me." I looked her in the eye and said, "No, Isabella, you did that all by yourself." She shot up from her chair, nearly knocking it over. "This isn't over. I'll take you to court. That house, that money, it's all mine." The lawyer, completely unfazed, said, "You're welcome to try, but Logan made sure his will is ironclad. You'd only waste your time and money." Isabella glared at both of us before storming out of the office, slamming the door. I sat there, taking a deep breath. Logan had stood up to her in the end. Even after his death, he protected me, but something told me this wasn't the last I'd hear from Isabella. I was right. Things were about to get even worse. Isabella stormed out of the lawyer's office that day, but I knew she wasn't finished. She wasn't the type to accept losing. All her life, she got her way through bullying, lies, and cruelty, and now, losing to me, a woman she always thought was beneath her, was something she couldn't accept. I barely made it home when the phone started ringing over and over. When I finally picked up, Isabella didn't bother with small talk. "You think you've won, don't you?" Her voice was full of anger, not sadness. I stayed quiet. She laughed bitterly. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. That house, that money, it should have been mine. You were nothing before you married my son, and you'll be nothing again soon." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Logan made his choice. You need to accept it." She scoffed. "We'll see about that." Then she hung up. I tried telling myself she was just angry and trying to scare me, but the way she said it made me feel sick. The first attack. A couple of weeks went by. It was quiet, too quiet. Then one morning, I woke up to an eviction notice stuck to my front door. My heart dropped. The notice claimed that the house, our house, wasn't legally mine. It said the house somehow still belonged to Isabella, but that didn't make sense. The lawyer had promised me the will was solid. Logan made sure I was protected. I called the lawyer right away. He was calm but serious. "She's trying to fight the will," he said. "She's claiming your marriage was fake, that you took advantage of Logan when he was sick. She's saying the house should go to his closest blood relative." I felt sick. "She can't actually do this, right?" "She can try," he replied, "but she doesn't have a real case. She's just throwing out lies, but that doesn't mean it won't be a battle." And it was. Isabella dragged me to court, making wild accusations about how I tricked Logan, how I took advantage of him when he was sick, and how I kept him away from his loving family. It was a nightmare. She lied and put on a fake show of being a heartbroken, caring mother who was shut out of her son's life. I sat there, my fists clenched so hard my nails left marks in my skin. I wanted to scream and tell everyone the truth, that Isabella never cared about Logan, only about controlling him, but I kept quiet and let my lawyer do his job. In the end, the judge saw through her lies. The case was thrown out. I thought it was over. It wasn't. The escalation. A few days later, I came home late one evening to find my front door slightly open, my stomach twisted with fear. I knew I had locked it when I left. I pushed the door open slowly, my hands shaking. The house was dark and way too quiet. When I stepped inside, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. And then I saw it. My living room was destroyed, furniture was flipped over, pictures were smashed, and papers were thrown everywhere. Someone had been there. I backed out of the house, my fingers trembling as I called 911. The police came quickly. They searched the house, but whoever did this was already gone. Nothing was stolen, just destroyed. It wasn't a robbery. It was a warning. I knew who was behind this. The police couldn't do much since there were no signs of forced entry. "Do you have any idea who did this?" they asked. I stared at them, my hands still shaking. Yes, but I had no proof, and Isabella wasn't done. The breaking point. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Strange cars parked outside my house at weird hours. My trash cans were knocked over at night. Dead flowers were left on my doorstep. I barely slept. It felt like I was being hunted. One evening, I heard a knock at my door. I checked the peephole. It was Isabella. I almost didn't open it, but I was tired of being scared. I opened the door. She smiled, but it was a cold, mocking smile. "Enjoying the house?" she asked. I didn't answer. Her smile grew. "I'm not going to stop. You think you've won, but this isn't over. You took my son from me, and I'm going to take everything from you." Something snapped in me. I was done living in fear. I stepped forward and met her gaze. "Listen, Isabella, you already lost. Logan saw what you truly were. No matter what you do, you will never win. This house? It's mine. My life? It's mine. And you have nothing. You did this to yourself." For a moment, I saw fear in her eyes, but then she sneered. "We'll see about that." She turned and walked away. I knew it wasn't over, and I was right. The ultimate betrayal. I barely slept that night. Isabella's words echoed in my mind. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my lawyer. "We have a problem," he said. "What now?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Isabella filed a new lawsuit. She's claiming Logan had a secret will, one that leaves everything to her." I almost dropped the phone. "A secret will? That's crazy." "I know," he said, "but she filed paperwork, and worse, she has a witness." My stomach twisted. "Who?" He hesitated. "Logan's best friend." David's betrayal. David had been Logan's best friend for years. He was the best man at our wedding. I trusted him. And now, he was helping Isabella. I called him right away. He answered, sounding too calm. "Hey. Tell me this isn't true," I said, my voice shaking. "Tell me you're not helping her." He sighed. "Look, I didn't want to get involved, but Isabella said Logan changed his mind before he died. She said he didn't want you to have everything." "That's a lie, and you know it," I said. "She has a document," he replied, "and I saw Logan sign it." I felt like I'd been punched. "You're lying, or she's paying you to lie." He went quiet. That silence told me everything. "How much?" I whispered. "How much is she paying you to betray your best friend?" He didn't answer. I hung up. A dead man's secret. I went straight to my lawyer's office. He was already looking at the supposed new will. "This is fake," he said. "Logan was careful. He wouldn't make another will without telling me." "So how do we prove it?" I asked. "The signatures aren't a perfect match. It's close, but not the same. We'll need a handwriting expert. He looked at me, but there's something else. He opened a file on his computer. Before Logan passed away, he made a video. He wanted to make sure no one could twist his words. My breath caught. A video? He nodded. He asked me to keep it safe. I think now is the time to use it. He clicked play. There was Logan, looking right at the camera. Logan's final words. He looked tired and thin, but his voice was steady. If you're watching this, it means my mother is trying to take what isn't hers. Tears filled my eyes. Logan spoke clearly. Isabella, if you're in a courtroom trying to lie your way into my money, know this, I expected you to do this. Isabella's fake will was worthless. David's lies were useless. Logan had outsmarted them even after he was gone, but his next words changed everything. Logan looked straight at the camera. Isabella, I know about the money. I froze. My lawyer looked shocked. Wait, what? Logan continued, his voice sharp. I know you stole from me, from my father, and from the company. My heart pounded. What was happening? Then Logan said something chilling. I know you paid David off years ago. I felt sick. Logan had known all along that his mother and his best friend had been working together, even before he died. He held up papers. I found the accounts, the secret transfers, the missing money. You thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. Logan had been collecting evidence. Then he smirked. That's why I set a trap. The video ended. My lawyer let out a low whistle. Well, that changes everything. I was shaking. What does he mean by a trap? He stood up. Let's find out. We went through Logan's files and found the truth. Bank transfers, fake companies, stolen money. Isabella had been stealing for years, and David had helped her cover it up. I felt rage building up. What do we do now? My lawyer grinned. We don't just fight back, we destroy them. The next day, we pressed charges for fraud, theft, and conspiracy. Isabella and David were about to face a legal nightmare. Isabella showed up at my house one last time, pale and desperate. Call off your lawyer, let's make a deal. I looked her in the eyes. No. For once, she realized she had truly lost. Isabella thought she could win by lying, bullying, and scheming like she always had, but Logan had outsmarted her. Even after his death, he was in control. The evidence was solid: bank fraud, money laundering, stolen inheritance, and wire transfers all traced back to her. David was just as guilty for helping her hide it. My lawyer handed everything over to the authorities, and then we waited as their world crumbled. It started with the IRS freezing her accounts, then, the police raided her house. The news spread quickly, authorities investigating financial crimes linked to the Caldwell estate. Isabella was arrested. She looked terrified as they led her away in handcuffs. David tried to run. He was caught at the airport with a one-way ticket to Mexico and $50,000 in cash. The police got him before he could escape. In court, the evidence was undeniable. The fake will, the stolen money, the bribes, everything was laid out for the judge and jury. Logan had left another video, this one for the court. It was longer, with even more proof. Isabella looked horrified as it played. Her own son had destroyed her case. The judge didn't hold back. Isabella got 15 years in prison. David got 10 years for helping her. Isabella tried to reach out to me from prison. She sent me a letter that said, "You think you won, but you're nothing without Logan. You took him from me. I'll never forgive you." I stared at the letter, then sent it back, unopened. Isabella lost everything. Her money, her house, her fake reputation, all gone. I sold the house she fought so hard to take from me and used the money to start a new life. I healed and moved on. Logan won, and that was the best revenge of all.
The call came at 3 a.m., jolting me from a dreamless sleep. My father's voice cracked with desperation, something I'd never heard from him before. "Lillian, we need your help. I'm Lillian, and for the past decade, my family has treated me like the black sheep who threw away her potential by choosing to work with cars instead of pursuing a respectable career. Now here was my father, the same man who once told me I was embarrassing the family name by playing mechanic, begging for my assistance. What happened?" I asked, already knowing this had something to do with my perfect brother Bentley. "It's complicated," Dad stammered. "Can you come over? First thing in the morning?" I glanced at the framed photo on my nightstand. Me at 18, covered in grease, standing proudly next to my first restored Mustang. Mom had refused to display it in their house, calling it unladylike. "I have a business to run," I replied, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "3 businesses, actually. Remember those grease monkey shops you were so ashamed of? Please, sweetheart. Your mother, she's not handling this well." I sat up, running my fingers through my hair. "I'll be there at 7, before my first shift starts." The drive to my parents' mansion in my restored '69 Chevelle felt surreal. I'd bought this car as a wreck for $500 5 years ago. Now it was worth north of 60 grand. Not that my family would ever appreciate that kind of transformation. Zuriel called while I was en route. "Boss lady, you're not going to believe what I just heard through the grapevine about Bentley's startup." "Save it," I cut in. "I'm heading to my parents now. Pretty sure I'm about to hear the whole story." "Want backup? I can be there in 20. "Thanks, Z, but I need to handle this solo." The gates to the estate opened automatically. At least they hadn't cut power to those yet. Mom was waiting at the door in her silk robe, her perfectly maintained facade cracking around the edges. "Lillian," she said stiffly, "you came. You sound surprised." I stepped past her into the marble foyer, my work boots echoing against the floor. "Where's the golden child?" "Your brother is in the study with your father." Her voice wavered. "Try to be kind." I almost laughed. "Like you all were to me?" The study door was open. Dad sat behind his massive desk, looking 10 years older than when I'd last seen him at Christmas. Bentley paced by the window, still wearing yesterday's rumpled suit. "Well?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "I've got a staff meeting at 8, so let's make this quick." "Your brother's company," Dad began. "Failed spectacularly?" I finished. "Yeah, I figured. The tech bubble's been bursting for months." Bentley whirled around. "You don't know anything about it. You fix cars for a living." "I run 3 successful businesses that fix cars," I corrected him. "And unlike you, I actually understand profit margins and sustainable growth." "Enough." Dad slammed his hand on the desk. "Lillian, please, this isn't just about Bentley's company. He invested everything. Our retirement fund, the house equity." My stomach dropped. "How much?" "All of it," Bentley whispered. And then some. The room spun slightly. I'd expected bad, but this? "You let him gamble away your entire fortune? After all that talk about responsible business practices?" Mom appeared behind me, wringing her hands. "We trusted him. He has an MBA from Harvard. Yes, you've only mentioned it about 1,000 times." I turned back to Dad. "So what exactly do you want from your disappointment daughter? The one you said would never amount to anything?" The silence was deafening. Finally, Dad spoke, his voice barely audible. "We need money, Lillian. A loan. Just until we can sort this out." I pulled out my phone, checking the time. 7:23 a.m. In 37 minutes, I'd be starting another productive day at my embarrassing business, while my Harvard-educated brother had just destroyed our family's legacy. "I'll think about it," I said, already heading for the door. "But first, I want to hear exactly how this happened. Every detail. And Bentley?" I paused, meeting his bloodshot eyes. "You might want to change out of that suit. Where you're going, it'll just get in the way." I spent the morning at my flagship garage trying to focus on work while my phone buzzed with desperate texts from my family. Casey, my head mechanic, noticed something was off when I fumbled a basic oil change. "Earth to Lillian," he said, sliding out from under a Porsche. "That's the 3rd time you've checked the dipstick. What's going on?" I wiped my hands on my coveralls. "Remember how I always said my brother would crash and burn someday?" "Yeah?" "Well, he just took the whole family fortune down with him." Casey whistled low. "Damn. That's why your phone's been blowing up?" "Yep." I showed him the latest message from Mom. "Please come back. We need to discuss options." "What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, Zuriel burst through the office door. "Holy shit, Lil. I just got the full scoop on Bentley's mess. He didn't just lose the family money. He borrowed against their house, took out high-interest loans, Even emptied your mom's inheritance from your grandmother. My hands started shaking. How do you know all this? My cousin works at the bank. Bentley's been there every day this week, trying to get more loans. They're about to foreclose on the house. I grabbed my keys. Casey, can you handle things here? Go. He nodded. Just don't let them manipulate you, okay? The mansion looked different in the afternoon light, less imposing, more vulnerable. This time, Bentley opened the door, his Harvard swagger replaced by dark circles under his eyes. They're in the living room, he mumbled, going through the paperwork. I found my parents surrounded by stacks of documents, Mom openly crying as Dad highlighted numbers in red. Show me everything, I demanded, holding out my hand. Dad passed me a folder. It's bad, Lillian. Bad was an understatement. Bentley had burned through millions in just 18 months. The tech startup, some ridiculous app for trading digital art, had never even launched properly. The house goes up for auction next month, Mom whispered. We'll have nowhere to go. You could have stopped him, I said, my voice tight. All those times I came to you for startup capital for my first garage, you said I was irresponsible, that I needed a real business plan, but you just handed everything over to him? He had spreadsheets, Dad defended weakly. Projections. I had projections too, but you wouldn't even look at them because they involve motor oil instead of microchips. Bentley stepped forward. Look, I know I messed up. Messed up? I laughed harshly. You destroyed everything our family built over 3 generations. And for what? So you could play tech entrepreneur? I was trying to innovate. No, you were trying to get rich quick. Meanwhile, I built my business the hard way. One garage at a time, one satisfied customer at a time. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Please, Lillian, we know you've done well for yourself. If you could just help us with the mortgage, why should I? The words came out before I could stop them. When I needed help, you all turned your backs on me, called my dream worthless. We were wrong, Dad said quietly. Is that what you want to hear? We were wrong about you, and we were wrong about Bentley. I stood up, pacing the room. Through the window, I could see my Chevelle parked next to Bentley's leased Tesla, which would probably be repossessed any day now. The house is worth what? $4 million? I asked. 4.2, Dad confirmed. But with the loans against it. And the total debt? Mom's hands trembled as she checked a spreadsheet. Just over $6 million. I let out a low whistle. That's a lot of oil changes. We know it's too much to ask, Dad started, but I cut him off. Actually, it's not. I pulled out my phone, checking my business accounts. I could cover it, but I won't, not without conditions. The room went silent. Even Bentley stopped his nervous pacing. What conditions? Mom asked. I looked each of them in the eye, savoring the moment. First, I get full control of all family assets. What's left of them anyway. Second, you all work for me until the debt is paid off. Work at your garages? Bentley looked horrified. Where else? Unless you've got another Harvard degree hiding somewhere that's actually worth something? Mom started to protest, but Dad held up his hand. What exactly would this arrangement entail? I smiled, already picturing Bentley in coveralls. Come to my office tomorrow morning, all of you. I'll have the contracts ready. As I walked out, I heard Mom burst into fresh tears. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger part remembered all the tears I'd shed alone in my first tiny garage, determined to prove them wrong. Now they'd learn exactly what their grease monkey daughter was capable of. My office wasn't what they expected. Located in a renovated industrial building, it balanced modern luxury with industrial chic. Exposed brick walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a restored vintage Harley-Davidson displayed in the corner. Their faces as they walked in said it all. This is yours? Mom touched the Italian leather couch hesitantly. All of it. I gestured for them to sit, including the building. Zuriel arrived with coffee. Premium roast, not the instant stuff Mom used to tell me was good enough for a mechanic. She placed the cups on my glass desk with a knowing smirk. "The contracts are ready," Zuriel announced. "Need anything else, boss?" "Just make sure we're not disturbed." I waited until she left before continuing. "So, let's talk about your new jobs." Bentley shifted uncomfortably in his designer suit. "I still think there must be other options." "There aren't." I pulled out 4 folders. "Unless you've got $6 million hidden somewhere?" Dad cleared his throat. "What exactly will we be doing?" "Mom, you'll handle customer service at our Riverside location. Dad, you'll manage parts inventory at downtown. And Bentley..." I smiled. "You're starting in the pit with Jillian." "The pit?" Mom looked confused. "Oil changes, tire rotations, basic maintenance. Where every good mechanic starts." Bentley jumped up. "This is ridiculous. I have an MBA." "And look how far that got you." I leaned back in my chair. "Sit down, Bentley. Unless you'd prefer explaining to your country club friends why your Tesla got repossessed." He sat. "The contracts are simple," I continued. "You work for me for 3 years minimum. Standard 40-hour weeks, industry standard pay. Everything goes toward paying off your debt. I'll handle the house payments and keep the creditors away. But one wrong move, one attempt to undermine me, and the deal's off." "3 years?" Mom whispered. "Would you prefer bankruptcy? Public auctions? Your faces in the financial papers?" Dad picked up his contract, scanning the terms. "And after 3 years, if you've proven yourselves valuable employees, we can discuss more permanent arrangements." I passed them each a pen. "Your choice." The silence stretched as they read. Finally, Dad signed first. Mom followed, her signature shakier than usual. Bentley stared at his contract like it might bite him. "This is karma, isn't it?" he muttered. "No, brother dear, this is business." I tapped the paper. "Sign." As he scrawled his signature, Casey knocked and entered. "Sorry to interrupt, but we've got that Maserati waiting for inspection." "Perfect timing," I said. "Casey, meet your new apprentice. Bentley needs his coveralls fitted." Casey's eyes widened with recognition. "This is your brother? The Harvard guy?" "Former Harvard guy," I corrected. "Current trainee mechanic. Show him the ropes, but don't go easy on him." "Wait, now?" Bentley protested. "I'm not dressed for..." "Your shift started 5 minutes ago." I pointed to the door. "Casey will show you where to change." After they left, Mom dabbed at her eyes again. "Lillian, please. He's not cut out for manual labor." Like I wasn't cut out for business? I pulled up my garage's financial reports on my desktop screen. "See these numbers? This is what not cut out for it looks like. 3 profitable locations, 47 employees, and contracts with every luxury car dealership in the city." "We didn't know," Dad said softly, "about any of this." "You never asked." I stood up. "Your shifts start tomorrow. I suggest you both get some rest. Manual labor takes some getting used to." They left looking shell-shocked, but I wasn't done. I headed down to the garage floor where Casey had Bentley struggling into steel-toed boots. "Having fun?" I asked. Bentley glared up from the bench. "This is humiliation and you know it. No, this is honest work. Something you've never tried." I picked up a basic wrench. "You know what this is?" "Of course I know what a wrench is." "Good, because by the end of today, you'll need to know the name and function of every tool in that box. Jillian will test you." On cue, Jillian rolled out from under a car nearby. "Looking forward to it, boss." I left Bentley gaping at his new supervisor, a tattooed woman 10 years his junior, and headed back upstairs. Through my office window, I watched Mom and Dad climb into their Mercedes, probably one of the last times they'd drive it. My phone buzzed with a text from Casey. "Your brother just asked if we have a valet for the customer cars." I smiled, remembering all the times they'd laughed at my career choice. "Let him figure it out." I typed back. "The hard way." Just like I had to. 1 week into their new jobs, and the complaints were already rolling in. I sat in my office reviewing the incident reports with Zuriel. "Your mother made 3 customers cry yesterday," Zuriel said, shuffling through papers. "Apparently, she told Mrs. Anderson her Ferrari was new money gauche and suggested she try a Lexus instead." I rubbed my temples. "And Bentley?" "Failed his tool test for the 3rd time. Jillian says he keeps calling her sweetheart and trying to explain business concepts to her while she's working." A knock interrupted us. Casey entered, looking exhausted. "Your brother just tried to delegate his oil changes to the intern. Again." "Where is he now?" "Hiding in the break room, complaining about his manicure being ruined." I stood up. "Time for a family meeting." I found them all in the break room. Mom still in her pressed pantsuit despite the dress code, Dad actually trying in his new uniform, and Bentley sulking in the corner with grease-stained hands. "Sit down," I ordered. "We need to talk about your performance reviews." "Performance reviews?" Mom looked offended. "We've only been here a week, and it's been a disaster." I pulled out the reports. "Mom, you can't insult customers based on their car choices." "Dad, inventory counts need to be exact, not approximately correct." "And Bentley," I turned to my brother, "Jillian is your supervisor. Her gender and age are irrelevant." "She's barely qualified to—" Bentley started. "She's been with me for 3 years and can rebuild a transmission blindfolded. You can barely change oil without whining." Dad raised his hand like a schoolboy. "I've been trying, Lillian." "Really?" "I know, Dad. That's why you're getting transferred to the front desk at Riverside. Mom's moving to inventory, where she'll have minimal customer contact." "And me?" Bentley asked. "You're staying right where you are until you learn some humility. And Jillian's getting a bonus for putting up with you." The door opened and a customer walked in, one of our regulars with a classic Mustang collection. His eyes widened at the scene. "Mr. Roberts," I smiled. "How's that 65 running?" "Like a dream, thanks to you." He glanced at my family. "Are these your new hires?" "My family, actually. They're learning the business." Bentley straightened up. "I'm her brother, Harvard MBA. I'm sure we could discuss some investment opportunities." "Bentley," I snapped. "Break room, now." After Mr. Roberts left, I rounded on my brother. "You do not solicit our customers, ever. You lost that privilege when you burned through millions of their colleagues' money." "I'm trying to help." "No, you're trying to avoid actual work, again." I pulled out my phone. "Jillian, could you come to the break room?" She appeared moments later, coveralls pristine despite having just finished a break job. "What's up, boss?" "Give me an honest assessment of Bentley's progress." She crossed her arms. "He refuses to get his hands dirty, won't listen to instructions, and spent 2 hours yesterday trying to convince me that we should disrupt the automotive industry with some app idea." Mom stood up. "This isn't fair, Lillian. We're trying our best." "Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're all still acting like you're too good for this work. My work. We're not used to this." Dad gestured vaguely. "Well, get used to it, fast. Because starting tomorrow, things change." I turned to Jillian. "Take Bentley through the certification checklist again. If he fails, he starts cleaning bathrooms." "You wouldn't dare." Bentley paled. "Try me, Mom, Dad. Your new assignments start in an hour. And lose the designer clothes. You're not impressing anyone here." As they filed out, Casey appeared with another update. "Your brother's Tesla just got towed from the parking lot." "Good." I checked my watch. "Right on schedule." "You knew?" "I called the repo company myself." I watched through the window as Bentley discovered his empty parking spot. "He needs to learn there are consequences." "You're enjoying this a little too much." Casey grinned. "Maybe." I turned back to my paperwork. "But they're learning more in a week than they have in years. Speaking of which..." I picked up my phone again. "Time to call the realtor about their house. I think it's ready for some renovations." "Renovations?" "Well, if they're going to live in it under my ownership, it needs a proper garage, don't you think?" Casey laughed. You're evil. No, I smiled, watching Bentley throw a tantrum in the parking lot. I'm just giving them the education they never gave me. The accident happened 3 weeks into their employment. I was in a meeting when Zuriel burst into my office, face pale. Bentley just dropped a Mercedes on the lift, she said breathlessly, with someone under it. I ran to the garage floor, heart pounding. Jillian was being helped up by Casey, shaken but miraculously unharmed. The Mercedes lay at an angle, its side panel crushed. What happened? I demanded. Your brother decided he didn't need a spotter to operate the lift, Casey explained, his voice tight with anger. Jillian barely rolled out in time. Bentley stood to the side, still holding the lift controls. I've watched it done 100 times. I thought. You thought? I exploded. You could have killed someone. Where's the customer? In the waiting room, Jillian said, rubbing her shoulder. He saw everything. I found the Mercedes owner pacing by the coffee machine. One look at his face told me this wasn't going to be pretty. Sir, I cannot apologize enough. That idiot could have killed your mechanic, he shouted. And my car. Do you know how rare that model is? I do, sir. I promise we'll make this right. Make it right? I'm calling my lawyer. Mom appeared from the inventory room, drawn by the commotion. Perhaps I could offer you some coffee while we... Mom, not now. I turned back to the customer. Sir, please come to my office. We'll handle this professionally. 2 hours and one very expensive settlement later, I called a mandatory staff meeting. My family sat in the front row, Bentley still trying to defend himself. It was an honest mistake. Anyone could have... Shut up. I rarely raised my voice, but this was it. This isn't about a mistake. This is about you thinking rules don't apply to you. Again. I was trying to be efficient. You were trying to show off. Jillian shot back. I told you 3 times to wait for a spotter. I held up my hand for silence. Bentley, you're suspended for 2 weeks, without pay. What? But the debt? Will take longer to pay off. Consider it motivation to follow safety protocols when you return. I turned to my parents. And you too. Why wasn't anyone supervising him? Mom bristled. We were doing our jobs as you demanded. Your jobs include watching out for each other. Or did you think your precious son was above basic safety training? Dad at least had the decency to look ashamed. We should have been more vigilant. Yes, you should have. I pulled out some papers. So here's what's going to happen. Mom, Dad, you're both taking safety certification courses. Full program, no shortcuts. But that's entry-level training, Mom protested. Exactly. Bentley, when you return, you start from scratch. Complete recertification with direct supervision. One more mistake like this, and you're out. Debt or no debt. You can't do this to me. Bentley stood up. I'm your brother. No, right now you're my employee. A dangerous one. I stepped closer. And if you ever put one of my people at risk again, being unemployed will be the least of your worries. The room fell silent. Casey cleared his throat. What about the Mercedes? Insurance will cover it, but our premiums will skyrocket. I glared at Bentley. Coming out of your wages, of course. This is ridiculous. Bentley grabbed his jacket. I'm calling my lawyer. Your lawyer dropped you weeks ago, I reminded him. Along with your credit cards, car, and dignity. Want to try for your work boots, too? He deflated visibly, slumping back into his chair. Meeting dismissed, I announced. Except for you 3. We're not done. After everyone left, I faced my family. I've been too lenient. That changes now. Lenient? Mom scoffed. You've been torturing us. No, I've been teaching you. Clearly not well enough. I pulled up the garage's security footage. Watch this. Watch how close Bentley came to killing someone today because he couldn't follow simple instructions. They watched in silence as the Mercedes tilted dangerously on screen, Jillian rolling away seconds before disaster. This is what happens when you think you're above the rules, I said quietly. Sound familiar, Bentley? Like a certain investment scheme? He wouldn't meet my eyes. From now on, you all report directly to Casey. No shortcuts, no special treatment, no family passes. I headed for the door. And Bentley? Clean out that Mercedes before you leave. By hand. Maybe some manual labor will help you remember why we have safety protocols. Lillian? Dad called as I reached the door. We are trying, you know. I paused, remembering all the times I'd said those same words to them, only to be dismissed. Try harder, I said, and left them sitting there, surrounded by the consequences of their actions. The first sign something was wrong came when our online reviews started tanking. 1-star ratings flooded in, all with similar complaints. Wrong parts installed, overcharged services, rude staff. I knew immediately who was behind it. Look at this, Zuriel said, showing me her tablet. Someone's been posting on local business forums about our fraudulent practices. The writing style seems familiar. I scrolled through the posts. Harvard Business School level vocabulary with prep school entitlement? Has to be Bentley. Want me to trace the IP? No need. I picked up my phone. Casey, where's my brother right now? Computers showing him logged into Terminal 3 in the back office. Said he was studying safety manuals. Check his screen. A minute later, Casey's voice crackled back. Caught him red-handed. He's writing another review as we speak. I stormed down to the back office. Bentley scrambled to close his laptop, but not fast enough. Having fun? I asked, crossing my arms. I was just trying to destroy my business? Again? I grabbed his laptop. Let's see. Unprofessional management more interested in personal vendettas than customer service. Creative. You're running our family name into the ground. No, you did that when you lost $6 million. I'm trying to save it. Mom appeared in the doorway. What's going on? Your son is sabotaging the business that's keeping you all out of bankruptcy. I turned the laptop to show her. Recognize his writing style? She read the screen, face falling. Bentley, how could you? How could I? How could she? He gestured at me wildly. She's humiliating us, making us work like common laborers. As opposed to what? I shot back. White-collar criminals? That's enough. Dad's voice boomed from behind Mom. Both of you. No, it's not enough. I pulled up the review statistics. These posts have already cost us 3 major clients. That's thousands in lost revenue. Revenue that was supposed to pay off your debt. Bentley stood up. Maybe if you'd given me a management position instead of sticking me in the pit. You lost that privilege when you nearly killed Jillian. I slammed the laptop shut. And now this? You're actively trying to destroy the only thing keeping our family afloat? Lillian, Mom stepped forward. Perhaps if we all just took a break? A break? Sure. How about a permanent one? I pulled out my phone. I can call the creditors right now. Let them know you're violating the terms of our agreement. You wouldn't, Dad whispered. Try me. I started dialing. 1 call, and you lose everything. Again. But this time I won't be here to save you. Wait. Mom grabbed my arm. Please, we'll handle this. Handle it? Like you handled his tech startup? His gambling, his... I'm sorry. The words burst from Mom like a dam breaking. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry we didn't believe in you. I'm sorry we favored him. I'm sorry for everything. The office went silent. In 15 years, I'd never heard my mother apologize for anything. Mom, Bentley started. No. She turned on him. You've done enough damage. First our savings, now this? She straightened her work uniform. Lillian, what do you want us to do? I studied her face, looking for any sign of manipulation. Found none. First, Bentley writes retractions for every fake review. Then he spends the next month detailing cars, by hand, no power tools. I looked at my brother. Unless you'd prefer explaining to a judge why you violated our agreement? He slumped in his chair. Fine. And you two? I addressed my parents. Start acting like actual employees. No more covering for him, no more excuses. Dad nodded slowly. We understand. Do you? Because one more incident like this and the deal's off. I mean it. As they filed out, Casey appeared with a stack of paperwork. Customer satisfaction surveys from this week. Thought you might want to see these. I flipped through them. Despite Bentley's sabotage attempts, our regular customers had left glowing reviews. Real ones. Your mom's actually getting better at inventory, Casey added. And your dad. He's got a knack for calming down angry customers. And Bentley? Still a disaster, but... Casey hesitated. Your mother's apology seemed genuine. I sank into my chair, suddenly exhausted. Maybe, or maybe she's just finally realized they have no other options. People can change, you know. Yeah. I watched through the window as Bentley began writing his retractions, Mom supervising nearby. But first, they have to want to. The annual luxury car show should have been my moment of triumph. Instead, I stood frozen as Bentley pitched his revolutionary new business model to my biggest client. Think about it, sir, he was saying. Why waste time with traditional repairs when we could create an app-based subscription service? Mr. Peterson, owner of the city's largest luxury car dealership, looked bemused. Interesting proposal. And you're part of Lillian's team? Actually, I'm the brains behind the operation. My sister just handles the mechanical aspects. I'd heard enough. Mr. Peterson, I see you've met my employee. Bentley's smile faltered. Lillian, I was just explaining how he violated his contract. Again. I turned to Mr. Peterson. I apologize for this interruption. Would you excuse us? Once out of earshot, I rounded on my brother. What the hell are you doing? Making things better. That subscription model could revolutionize. Like your last revolutionary idea? The one that bankrupted our family? This is different. I've learned from my mistakes. Have you? I gestured around the showroom. Because it looks like you're still trying to take shortcuts. Still trying to prove you're better than just a mechanic. At least I'm trying to improve things. You're stuck in the past with your wrenches and oil changes. Our argument was drawing attention. Casey appeared at my elbow. Boss, maybe we should take this somewhere private. No need. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the lawyers. The deal's off. You can't. Mom rushed over, Dad close behind. Please, Lillian, he didn't mean to try stealing my clients? Again? After the review incident? I started dialing. I warned you what would happen. Wait. Bentley grabbed my arm. Just wait. Something in his voice made me pause. I'm scared, okay? His voice cracked. I'm terrified of being nothing but a failure. Of being just another mechanic. Just another mechanic? Jillian stepped forward, wiping grease from her hands. You mean like me? The one who's been teaching you everything you know? Or me, Casey added. The just a mechanic who runs 3 service departments? Or me, I finished quietly. The mechanic who saved your ass when your brilliant business plans fell apart? Bentley's shoulders slumped. I didn't mean, yes, you did. I pocketed my phone. You still think you're better than us. That's why you can't learn, can't improve, can't succeed. I don't know how to be anything else, he whispered. Then learn. I pointed to where Mr. Peterson was examining a Ferrari. See him? He respects us because we deliver results, not promises. We fix things, not break them. Dad cleared his throat. She's right, son. I've learned more about real business in 3 months here than in 30 years of corporate life. And I've learned about real customer service, Mom added. Not just social climbing disguised as networking. So what now? Bentley asked. Now? I looked around at my empire. The gleaming cars, the skilled staff, the reputation I'd built. Now you make a choice. Either commit to actually learning this business or walk away. But if you walk alone. No more family bailouts. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if I can't do it? Can't or won't? I nodded toward Jillian. Because she thinks you could be decent at this if you'd check your ego. Really? He looked surprised. Jillian shrugged. You've got good hands when you actually try. And you understand luxury cars better than most beginners. The choice is yours, I said. But choose now, in front of everyone. Bentley looked around, at our parents, at the staff watching, at Mr. Peterson in the distance. Finally, he pulled out his phone, pulled up his social media, and deleted the half-written business proposal I knew he'd been working on. Teach me, he said quietly. For real this time. Jillian? I called. Think you can handle one more try with him? She grinned. If he promises to leave the Harvard attitude at home. Deal. I turned back to Bentley. But one more scheme, one more shortcut, and you're done. Understood? He nodded. Good. I straightened my jacket. Now, I have a client to smooth things over with. Mom, Dad, back to work. Bentley, Jillian's waiting. As they dispersed, Casey touched my arm. You're giving him another chance? No. I watched Bentley follow Jillian to the service area, his designer shoes finally replaced with proper work boots. I'm giving him what I never got, the chance to earn one. The sound of laughter drew me to the garage floor. Bentley lay under a Porsche, covered in oil, while Jillian coached him through a transmission repair. No, your other left, she teased. Harvard didn't teach spatial awareness? Very funny. He rolled out, grinning despite the grease smeared across his face. But I think I've got it now. Show me, I said, making them both jump. Bentley didn't hesitate. He walked me through the repair step by step, his hands sure and confident on the tools. No shortcuts, no excuses, just solid work. Not bad, I admitted. Almost like you've been paying attention. Had good teachers. He glanced at Jillian. Once I shut up and listened. Mom appeared from the inventory room, tablet in hand. Lillian, the new parts system is showing a discrepancy in the German imports. Show me. She pulled up the spreadsheet, pointing out the error she'd caught. If we adjust the ordering schedule, we could save 15% on shipping. Implementation plan? Already drafted. Your father's running the numbers now. I studied her face. No trace of the entitled woman who'd once refused to set foot in my grease pit. Just a competent employee who'd found her niche. Good work, I said. Both of you. Casey burst in, excitement clear on his face. You need to see this. He led us to the front office where Dad stood with Mr. Peterson and several other clients. Tell them, Mr. Peterson urged Dad. Well, Dad cleared his throat. After that transmission repair Bentley did on Mr. Peterson's Ferrari, word spread. We've got luxury car clubs from 3 states wanting exclusive service contracts. The Harvard kid who learned to turn a wrench. Mr. Peterson chuckled. Great PR story, but it's the quality work that sold me. I turned to Bentley, expecting to see his old smugness. Instead, he looked embarrassed. It wasn't just me, he said. Jillian did most of the work. I just assisted. And that, I said quietly, is why we're having this conversation. Later, after the contracts were signed and the clients gone, I called a family meeting. Not in the break room this time, but in my office. The debt's not fully paid, I began, but your work these past months has shown me something. That we were wrong about everything? Mom offered. That people can change, I corrected. When they want to badly enough. I pulled out 4 envelopes. What's this? Bentley asked. Your future, if you want it. I handed them out. Open them. Inside each envelope was a contract. Not for debt repayment this time, but for permanent positions. Real ones, with benefits and equity shares. You're making us partners? Dad stared at his contract. Junior partners, I clarified. Mom, you've revolutionized our inventory system. Dad, Your customer service metrics are the highest we've ever had. And Bentley, he looked up from his contract. Yes? Jillian says you're ready to lead your own team, if you want it. He swallowed hard. I don't deserve this. No, you didn't, but you earned it. The hard way. Like you did, Mom said softly. Like I did. I sat back. So what's it going to be? Partners or competitors? Dad signed first, then Mom. Bentley stared at his contract longer. The old me would have seen this as a consolation prize, he said finally. Less than I deserved. And now? He picked up a pen. Now I know it's more than I deserve, but exactly what I need. As they left my office, contract signed, Casey lingered. You planned this all along, didn't you? He asked. The tough love, the manual labor, all of it? I planned to save the family business, I corrected. Just turned out to be a different business than they expected. Through the window, I watched Bentley return to the Porsche, Jillian already waiting with tools ready. Mom and Dad huddled over a tablet, pointing out something in the inventory system. They're not the same people who look down on your dreams, Casey observed. No, I agreed. They're better. They're real. Like their daughter? I smiled, remembering the scared teenager who'd first picked up a wrench, determined to prove everyone wrong. No, I said. Like themselves, finally. The sound of engines and laughter drifted up from the garage floor. The symphony of a family business running not on pretense, but on pride and honest work. And for the first time, I felt not just successful, but complete.
The smell of burnt sugar filled my parents' dining room, but it wasn't coming from any of my baking experiments. It was the acrid stench of another one of my dreams going up in flames. I'm Sawyer, and I've spent 29 years watching my younger brother's half-baked schemes get served up with a heaping side of parental approval, while my own ambitions got tossed in the trash. A bakery? My father's fork clattered against his plate. You want to throw away your finance career to sell cupcakes? It's not just cupcakes, Dad. I straightened my spine, gripping my water glass to keep my hands from shaking. I've done the market research. There's no artisanal bakery in this part of town, and with my business background. Speaking of business, my mother cut in, beaming at my brother across the table. Kyson, tell your sister about your new venture. Kyson lounged back in his chair, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. It's gonna be huge. We're talking cryptocurrency meets social media meets. Mom, Dad, please. I set down my glass before I could crack it. I didn't come here for Kyson's elevator pitch. I came to tell you I'm using my bonus to open Sweet Victory Bakery. Honey. Mom reached across the table, her fingers brushing my wrist. We know you love baking, but it's just a hobby. Kyson's new platform could revolutionize. Like his dating app revolutionized things? The words shot out before I could stop them. Or his subscription box service, or his... Those were learning experiences, Dad snapped. At least your brother has vision. You're talking about throwing away a 6-figure salary to play Betty Crocker. I'm not playing at anything. I pulled out my phone, pulling up the business plan I'd spent months perfecting. Look at these projections. I've already found the perfect location and my friend Tiara. Your bonus could really help Kyson get his new venture off the ground, Mom said softly. Family should support family. I looked at Kyson, who was typing away on his phone, probably tweeting about his next big thing. He hadn't even bothered to ask what kind of bakery I wanted to open. You're right, Mom. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Family should support family. That's why I came here tonight, hoping you'd finally support me. Sawyer, sit down, Dad ordered. We're not finished discussing this. Actually, we are. I grabbed my purse. I signed the lease this morning. The bonus is already in escrow. You what? Mom's face went pale. Without consulting us? I'm 29 years old. I don't need consultation to invest my own money in my own dream. Kyson finally looked up from his phone. Come on, Saw. Don't be dramatic. Just hear me out about my project. It's guaranteed to fail? I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Like everything else you've tried? The difference is, I've been planning this for years. I've been taking night classes in business management. I've been apprenticing with Bo at his bakery every weekend. I'm not jumping into this blind. You're making a mistake, Dad said, his voice hard. When this fails, I corrected, and if it does, I'll handle it myself, just like I've handled everything else. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. You know what the funny thing is? I actually thought you'd be proud of me for once, for having the courage to chase my dream instead of just talking about it. Sawyer, Mom started, the bakery opens in 6 weeks. You're all welcome to come. I pulled open the door, but only if you're ready to actually taste what I'm capable of. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood on the porch, letting the cool evening air dry the tears I refused to shed. My phone buzzed. A text from Kiara. How'd it go? I typed back. Exactly as expected. Meet me at Bo's. Her response was immediate. On my way, first round of stress baking is on me. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Maybe it was because I'd finally stood up to them, or maybe it was because, for the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for permission to be myself. Either way, I knew one thing for certain. Sweet Victory Bakery wasn't just going to be a business. It was going to be proof that sometimes the best revenge is served fresh from the oven, with a sprinkle of success on top. 6 weeks flew by in a blur of flour, sugar, and sleepless nights. Opening day at Sweet Victory Bakery arrived with the smell of fresh croissants and nervous energy. These display cases are spotless, Bridget said, adjusting a tray of raspberry Danish. I've cleaned them 3 times already. Make it 4, I replied, rearranging macarons for the 10th time. Everything has to be perfect. Tira burst through the back door, holding a massive bouquet. First delivery of the day. Card says it's from Bo. I plucked the card from the flowers. To the newest baker on the block. Show them what you're made of. That man's a saint. The bell above the door chimed, and my heart stopped. But it wasn't my family, just our first customer. Then another, and another. By noon, the display cases were half empty, and Bridget was starting a 3rd batch of chocolate croissants. The lunch rush brought in curious office workers, and word of mouth did the rest. Your sourdough is incredible, an elderly woman told me, clutching her paper bag. I haven't tasted bread like this since I left Europe. I was boxing up her order when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Kyson's big announcement tonight. Family dinner at 7. Don't be late. Everything okay? Kiara asked, noticing my expression. Family dinner tonight. Kyson's announcing his new venture. On your opening day? That's not a coincidence. Of course it's not. I handed the box to the customer. But I'm going anyway. They need to see I can do both. Run this place and still show up for family. The rest of the afternoon passed in a whirlwind of customers and compliments. At 6:30, I changed out of my flour-dusted clothes and headed to my parents' house, bringing a box of our best-selling items. I walked in to find Kyson holding court in the living room, laptop open on the coffee table. Perfect timing, sis. He waved me over. I'm just showing Mom and Dad the projection slides. How was your bakery's first day? Mom asked, but her eyes never left Kyson's screen. It was... Look at these numbers, Kyson interrupted, pointing at his laptop. We're talking serious ROI within the first quarter. I just need some seed money to get it off the ground. Dad nodded approvingly. How much are we talking? 200,000, but it's practically guaranteed. 200,000? I nearly dropped the pastry box. That's more than double what I invested in my entire bakery. This is different, Dad said dismissively. This is a tech startup. The potential return is exponential. I set the box on the coffee table. I brought some samples from today. We sold out of almost everything, but I saved these for you. Mom glanced at the box. That's nice, dear. Kyson, tell us more about the user interface. I watched as they fawned over Kyson's PowerPoint presentation, complete with buzzwords and pie charts that made no sense. The pastries sat untouched. We've already committed to backing him, Dad announced proudly. Your mother and I are liquidating some investments. Your what? I stood up so fast my head spun. After all his failed ventures? Failed? Kyson scoffed. They were learning experiences. This time it's different. I've got investors lined up. Then why do you need Mom and Dad's money? Because they believe in me. He slammed his laptop shut. Unlike some people. I believe in reality, I shot back. And the reality is, I just opened a successful business with less than half of what you're asking for. A cute little bakery isn't exactly disrupting the tech industry, he sneered. No, it's just feeding actual people and turning an actual profit on day one. Mom stood between us. That's enough. Sawyer, if you can't be supportive. Supportive? I laughed. Like you were this morning when you couldn't even show up to my opening? The room fell silent. I picked up the untouched pastry box. You know what? Keep the money in the family. But when this falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. It won't fall apart, Dad insisted. Your brother has a real vision this time. So do I said quietly. But you'd have to actually visit my bakery to see it. I walked out again. But this time, I wasn't sad. I was angry and determined. My phone buzzed. Bridget sending me tomorrow's pre-orders. We were already booked solid for custom cakes through the next month. I typed back, get ready for an early morning. We're going to show this town what a cute little bakery can do. Let Kyson have his parents' money and approval. I had something better, a real business, built with my own hands, that was already proving them all wrong. 3 months after opening day, I was elbow deep in cookie dough when Bridget rushed into the kitchen, eyes wide. Your parents are here, she whispered. They're standing in the middle of the morning rush, looking confused. I wiped my hands on my apron. Of course they show up during our busiest time. The line stretched out the door. Our new normal since the local paper had featured us last week. Mom and Dad stood awkwardly near the register, taking in the exposed brick walls and the constant stream of customers clutching coffee cups and pastry bags. Welcome to Sweet Victory, I said, stepping behind the counter. First time here? Mom's eyes darted around the packed cafe. We were in the neighborhood. The neighborhood you haven't visited in 3 months? I started boxing up a selection of our best sellers. Try the lavender honey scones. They're why we had the TV crew here yesterday. TV crew? Dad's head snapped up. Local morning show. They're doing a segment on successful new businesses. I handed them the box. On the house. Before they could respond, Kira called from the register. Sawyer, the wedding consultation is here. Wedding consultation? Mom echoed. We're doing 3 wedding cakes this weekend. I gestured to the portfolio on the counter. We're booked solid through summer now. Excuse me, I have customers waiting. I spent the next hour walking a bride through cake designs while watching my parents from the corner of my eye. They sat at a corner table, picking at their pastries and watching the constant flow of customers. Is that really your parents? The bride asked, following my gaze. My mom says she has to make reservations just to get your weekend brunch pastry boxes now. They must be so proud. I forced a smile. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Just then, Kyson burst through the door, face flushed. He barely acknowledged our parents before making a beeline for me. We need to talk, he hissed, privately. I'm with a client. It's important. I apologized to the bride and followed Kyson to the back office. He closed the door and started pacing. The investors pulled out, he blurted. All of them, the whole thing's falling apart. The guaranteed success? The exponential returns? Don't. He ran his hands through his hair. The development team hit some snags and costs are spiraling. Mom and Dad's investment, it's almost gone. I leaned against my desk, letting that sink in. How much is almost? Like, all of it. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And there might be some other debts? Jesus, Kyson. I pushed away from the desk. How bad? Bad enough that Mom and Dad might lose their... A knock interrupted us. Bridget poked her head in. Sorry, but the health inspector is here for our quarterly check, and the local business association wants to talk about featuring us in their holiday campaign. Be right there. I turned back to Kyson. We'll discuss this later. There might not be a later. The creditors are... Should I tell Mom and Dad about this conversation? His face paled. No, they don't know how bad it is yet. I was hoping maybe you could... Could what? Bail you out? With my cute little bakery money? Sawyer, please, I'm desperate here. I opened the door. So was I every time I needed support. Funny how things turn out, isn't it? Back in the main room, Mom and Dad were still at their table, watching me with new eyes as I guided the health inspector through our spotless kitchen. They saw the respect in his nods, heard the pride in my staff's voices as they explained our procedures. Perfect score again, the inspector announced, signing off on his forms. Keep up the excellent work. Mom stood up as I passed their table. Sawyer, we had no idea. No, you didn't. I straightened a display of fresh croissants. Because you never bothered to look. Your brother, Dad started, will probably be asking for your help again soon. I met their eyes. Maybe this time think carefully about where you invest your trust. They left shortly after, taking their half-eaten pastries with them. Through the window, I watched them talk intensely in the parking lot, probably about Kyson's latest disaster. Ciara appeared at my shoulder. You okay? Better than okay. I picked up a piping bag. We've got orders to fill, a business to run, and success to bake. And Kyson's problems? I started piping delicate roses onto a celebration cake. Let's just say karma comes in all flavors. Some are just sweeter than others. The afternoon sun streamed through our windows, catching on the gold lettering that spelled out Sweet Victory Bakery. Outside, another line was forming for our afternoon tea service. Inside, I was finally serving up the one thing my family had never given me, respect, and it tasted better than any revenge I could have planned. The family ambush came on a Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing a batch of macarons. Mom, Dad, and Kyson filed into my office like a funeral procession, with Kyson looking particularly grave. We need to talk, Dad said, closing the door. I'm busy. I kept piping. We have a corporate event tomorrow. Please, Mom's voice cracked. This is important. I set down the piping bag. More important than my last 3 dinner invitations that you all skipped? This is serious. Kyson stepped forward. The creditors are threatening legal action. They're talking about putting liens on Mom and Dad's house. And this is my problem because you're the only one who can help. Kyson exploded. Your bakery's doing great. Everyone knows it. The local papers, the TV spots. So now my cute little bakery matters? I crossed my arms. Now that you need something? Dad cleared his throat. We were wrong, okay? We should have supported you from the start. Should have? I laughed. You actively tried to stop me. You wanted me to give my money to him. I pointed at Kyson for what turned out to be another failure. I know I messed up, Kyson said quietly, but Mom and Dad shouldn't lose their house because of me. They shouldn't have invested money they couldn't afford to lose. Sawyer, Mom stepped closer, tears in her eyes. We're not just asking for money. We're asking for your help, your business expertise. You've proven you know what you're doing. Now I have expertise. 3 months ago, I was playing Betty Crocker. A knock interrupted us. Bridget opened the door. Sorry, but the magazine photographer is here for the top 30 under 30 shoot. Tell them I'll be right there. Top 30 under 30? Dad's eyebrows shot up. Regional Business Magazine. I straightened my apron. Turns out selling cupcakes can be pretty prestigious when you do it right. Kyson slumped against the wall. So you won't help? I studied my brother, really looked at him for the first time in months. His designer clothes were wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He looked beaten. I didn't say that. Hope flickered across his face. Really? I'll think about it. But if, and that's a big if, I help, it'll be on my terms. Anything, Mom said quickly. Whatever you want. I want a family meeting. Tomorrow night, here at the bakery, after closing. I picked up my piping bag again. I'll lay out my conditions then. Conditions? Dad frowned. Did you think I'd just write a check and forget how you've treated me for years? I started piping again. This isn't charity, it's business. But, Kyson started. Tomorrow at 8. I cut him off. Don't be late, and come hungry. I'm testing new recipes for the fall menu. They filed out, shoulders slumped but with a hint of hope. Through my office window, I watched them cross the parking lot, huddled together like survivors of a storm. Ciara slipped in as they left. That looked intense. They want my help with Kyson's mess. And you're considering it? She raised an eyebrow. After everything? I'm considering making them earn it. I finished the last macaron. Remember that contract template your lawyer sister sent over? The partnership agreement? That's the one. Can you get me a copy? I need to make some modifications. Ciara's eyes widened. You're not seriously thinking of making Kyson a partner? No. I smiled. I'm thinking of making him learn what real business looks like, from the ground up. You're going to make him work here? If he wants my help, he's going to learn every aspect of running a successful business, starting with morning prep at 4 a.m. Bridget popped her head in. The photographer's waiting. Coming. I stood up, brushing flour from my apron. Oh, and Bridget, clear the schedule for tomorrow night. We're hosting a very special family dinner. Should I make your famous revenge cake? She grinned. No. I straightened my shoulders. Make the humble pie, extra humble. As I walked to meet the photographer, I caught my reflection in the bakery window. I saw someone I barely recognized, not the shadow of my younger brother, but a successful business owner about to teach her family a lesson in respect. Tomorrow night, I'd serve up a slice of reality with a side of consequences, and this time, they'd have no choice but to take a bite. At exactly 8 o'clock, my family sat around one of our rustic wooden tables, staring at the spread before them. I'd laid out a feast, everything that had made Sweet Victory famous in just 3 months. Before we discuss terms, I said, sliding into my seat, let's talk numbers. How bad is it really, Kyson? He pulled out a crumpled stack of papers. 243,000. That's more than Mom and Dad invested, I noted. There were additional loans. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Personal guarantees. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Personal guarantees. You said the investment was secured. Can we focus on solutions? Mom pleaded, reaching for a cheese Danish with trembling fingers. That's why we're here. I pulled out 3 manila envelopes. My terms. Kyson grabbed for an envelope, but I held them back. First, eat. Everything on this table represents what actual success looks like. I want you to taste what you've been dismissing. They ate in silence. I watched their faces as they tried each item: the sourdough that took me 6 months to perfect, the croissants that required 3 days of preparation, the signature cake that had won us our first wedding contract. This is, Dad swallowed hard. This is incredible, Sawyer. I know. I slid the envelopes across the table. Now, let's talk about how we fix your mess. They opened the envelopes. Mom gasped. Kyson's face went pale. You want me to work here? He sputtered. As a trainee? 6 months, minimum wage, starting with morning prep at 4 a.m. I tapped the contract. You'll learn every aspect of running a real business. No shortcuts, no excuses. But my tech career is over, I finished. At least until you pay back every penny you owe. And us? Dad asked, reviewing his paper. You'll both take small business management classes at the community college, the same ones I took while working full-time, and you'll spend one shift per week here, seeing what your daughter built while you weren't looking. These terms are ridiculous, Kyson protested. More ridiculous than losing your parents' house? I leaned forward. More ridiculous than watching them liquidate their retirement to fund your fantasy? Mom wiped her eyes. We'll do it. Margaret, Dad started. No, Henry, look around. She gestured at the bakery. Our daughter built this while we were too busy enabling Kyson's failures. We owe her this much. There's more, I said, pulling out another document. Once the debt is paid and if, big if, Kyson completes his training successfully, I'll consider taking him on as a junior partner in a new venture. Kyson's head snapped up. New venture? I'm planning to expand. A second location, maybe a wholesale operation, but only with someone who understands real business, not get-rich-quick schemes. And the money? Dad asked quietly. How much can you? I'll cover the debts. I slid over a cashier's check, but only after all three of you sign these contracts. Break them, and I'll demand immediate repayment. Kyson stared at the contract, then at the bustling bakery around us. You really start at 4 a.m.? Sharp. Bridget will train you. She's strict, by the way, doesn't tolerate excuses. And the business classes? Mom asked. Tuesday and Thursday evenings. I've already enrolled you both. Bo, my mentor, teaches some of them. They sat in silence, reading through the terms. Finally, Dad reached for a pen. You're either brilliant or cruel, he said, signing his name. I learned from the best. I watched as Mom and Kyson signed too. Welcome to the real world of business, family. Hope you like the taste of humble pie. When do we start? Kyson asked, already looking uncomfortable. You? Tomorrow morning. Don't be late. Bridget hates that. I gathered the signed contracts. Mom, Dad, your first class is next week. I expect full attendance and completed homework. As they prepared to leave, Mom paused. We really are proud of you, Sawyer. We should have said it sooner. Actions speak louder than words, I replied. Show me with your commitment to these terms. After they left, Kira emerged from the kitchen. Think they'll actually follow through? They better. I looked at the signed contracts. Because this is their last chance to prove they see me as more than just Kyson's big sister. And if they fail, I smiled, sliding the contracts into my safe. Then they'll learn what I already know. Success tastes sweetest when you earn it yourself. Through the window, I watched them drive away, their faces still processing the evening's events. Tomorrow would be Kyson's first 4 a.m. wake-up call and my parents' first step toward understanding what their daughter had achieved. Let the lessons begin. 2 weeks into our new arrangement, I arrived at 3:45 a.m. to find Kyson already waiting outside. Dark circles under his eyes, but on time for once. Bridget's been making me come 15 minutes early, he mumbled, suppressing a yawn. Says if I'm not early, I'm late. Smart woman. I unlocked the door. Ready to learn laminated dough today? I still have burns from yesterday's lesson. Those aren't burns, I laughed. They're badges of honor. Wait until you start working with caramel. Inside, Bridget was already setting up the prep stations. She'd taken to training Kyson with a drill sergeant's precision, and surprisingly, he hadn't quit yet. Your brother's getting better, she whispered as Kyson tied on his apron. He only ruined one batch of brioche yesterday. The morning proceeded smoothly until Bo walked in through the back door, carrying a stack of folders. Quarterly supplier reviews, he announced, then stopped short at the sight of Kyson covered in flour. Well, look who finally joined the real world. You know each other? I asked. Oh, we go way back. Bo set down the folders. Your brother here tried to get me to invest in 3 different schemes. What was the last one? The social media thing for pets? Kyson's face reddened. It was a revolutionary platform. It was a mess, Bo cut in. Just like the dating app and the subscription box service. I tried to warn your parents, but they wouldn't listen. I froze in the middle of scoring croissants. You warned them? Multiple times. Bo crossed his arms. Showed them the market research, the flawed business plans, everything. They said I just didn't understand modern business. The scoring knife clattered onto the counter. They knew? They knew his businesses were doomed? They chose to believe what they wanted to believe. Bo shrugged. Just like they chose not to see what was right in front of them with you. Kyson stared at the floor, hands covered in dough. I didn't know you tried to warn them. Of course you didn't. Bo picked up a rolling pin. You were too busy chasing unicorns to see the real opportunities around you. Like this place. He gestured at the bakery. Your sister built this while you were playing entrepreneur. The morning rush prep continued in tense silence. At 6, Mom arrived for her weekly shift, looking more comfortable in her bakery apron than I'd expected. The regulars are starting to know my name, she said proudly, then noticed the atmosphere. What's wrong? Ask Bo, I said quietly. About all those warnings he gave you about Kyson's ventures. Mom's smile faded. Sawyer, we can explain. Can you? I checked the proofing drawer. Can you explain why you ignored professional advice about Kyson, but couldn't even show up to my opening day? We thought, she trailed off. You thought he needed you more, Bo finished. But he needed you to say no, and Sawyer needed you to say yes. The first customers would arrive soon. I turned to Kyson, who hadn't moved from his workstation. Start the coffee prep, I ordered. Mom, get the display cases ready. We'll discuss this later. But as the morning progressed, watching them work, really work, for the first time in their lives, something shifted. Kyson's hands were steady as he worked the espresso machine. Mom's voice was confident as she explained our pastry selection to customers. During the mid-morning lull, Bo pulled me aside. They're learning, he said. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from watching someone else succeed. I'm not sure I can forgive them, I admitted, for knowing the truth and still choosing his failures over my success. Maybe that's not the point. Bo nodded toward Kyson, who was carefully crafting his first latte art. Maybe the point is making sure they never make the same mistake again. The morning rush picked up again, and I watched my family move through the choreography of the bakery. They were different people than they'd been 2 weeks ago, humbler, harder working, finally understanding what it meant to build something real. My phone buzzed. Dad sending his completed homework from his business class, asking for feedback. Another text followed. Your professor said my analysis of Sweet Victory's business model was spot on. I'm starting to understand what you built here. I typed back, understanding is just the beginning. Wait until you see what's next. Because that's the thing about real success. It's not about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right over and over until even the doubters have to believe. And watching my family finally learn that lesson, that was sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. 1 month later, I called an emergency family meeting. The bakery was closed, but the lights blazed as I spread documents across our largest table. "Is everything okay?" Mom asked, sliding into her seat. "You sounded serious on the phone." "Just wait." I checked my watch. "Kyson should be here any—" The door chimed. Kyson rushed in, still in his flour-dusted uniform from the morning shift. "Sorry I'm late. The wholesale orders took longer than expected." "Sit down," I said, pushing a folder toward each of them. "We need to talk about what Bo told me." Dad's face fell. "Sawyer, we can explain." "No." I held up my hand. "I've been doing some digging, going through old records, talking to Bo, checking with the business registry." I pulled out a stack of papers. "You didn't just ignore his warnings. You mortgaged the house 3 times to fund Kyson's ventures." Mom started crying. You thought he'd succeed eventually," I finished, while actively sabotaging his chances by never making him face consequences. "That's not fair," Dad protested. "No?" I spread out more documents. "What about the time you pulled money from my college fund for his first startup? Or when you convinced Aunt Linda to invest her savings in his dating app?" Kyson's head snapped up. "You used Sawyer's college fund?" "We paid it back," Dad mumbled. "With what?" I demanded. "The money you should have been saving for retirement? The equity from your house? The loans you're still paying off?" The silence was deafening. Outside, the street was dark and empty, but inside, years of secrets were finally coming to light. "I had no idea," Kyson whispered, "about any of this." "Because they protected you from reality." I turned to our parents, and in doing so, they hurt everyone, including you. Mom wiped her eyes. "We just wanted to help." I laughed bitterly. "Look where that got us. A mountain of debt, a house in jeopardy, and a son who never learned to stand on his own feet. Until now," Kyson said quietly. He pulled out his own papers, daily sales reports from his shifts, customer feedback, even a rough business plan. "I've been learning, Sawyer, really learning. These past weeks have shown me what I was doing wrong all along." "Show them," I nodded toward our parents. Kyson spread out his work. "Every failed venture, I was chasing shortcuts, but here?" He gestured around the bakery. "Everything takes time, preparation, attention to detail. You can't rush perfection." Dad picked up one of Kyson's reports. "You did all this analysis yourself?" "Bridget's been teaching me. Did you know our morning prep schedule is synchronized to maximize oven efficiency? Or that each recipe is tested 30 times before it goes on the menu?" "That's what real business looks like," I said, "not PowerPoint presentations and empty promises." "We were wrong," Mom admitted, "about everything. The way we treated you, the way we enabled Kyson. The question is," I leaned forward, "what are you going to do about it?" Dad straightened in his chair. "We'll sell the house, pay off the debts ourselves." "No." I pulled out one final document. "You're going to let me help, the right way this time." "What do you mean?" "Sweet Victory is expanding. We're opening a second location." I slid the paper across the table. "If you all agree to continue your training, to work as hard as you have been, I'll handle the debts. But this time, we do it as a real family business." "You'd trust us?" Kyson asked. "After everything?" "I trust the people you're becoming," I corrected. "The ones who show up at 4 a.m., who do the hard work, who finally understand what it means to build something real." Mom reached for the document with trembling hands. "We don't deserve this chance." "No, you don't. But that's what family does. Gives chances to those who earn them. And you're finally earning it." Kyson stood up suddenly, walking to the window. The sweet victory sign cast a warm glow on his face. I want to run the new location, he said. Not as the boss, as a student. Learning from the ground up, doing it right this time. That's the first smart business decision you've ever made, I smiled. We spent the next hour going over plans, real plans, built on hard work and honest numbers. As my family signed the new agreements, I saw something I'd never seen before. Respect in their eyes, not just for my success, but for the path that led here. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving people wrong, but in helping them become right. The morning of the second location's opening, I stood in the new kitchen, watching Kyson teach our parents the proper way to laminate croissant dough. No, Mom, you need to fold it exactly 3 times, he demonstrated. Remember what Bridget taught us. Precision matters. Like this, Mom's hands were steady as she created perfect layers. Exactly. He beamed. Now you're getting it. Dad checked the proofing drawer temperatures, making notes in the logbook he'd designed himself. His business classes had awakened a passion for systems optimization that none of us had expected. The delivery truck's here, Tiara called from the back door. First wholesale order for the new location. I've got it, Kyson said, wiping his hands. That's my department now. I watched him confidently direct the delivery, checking every item against his meticulous spreadsheet. No shortcuts, no grandiose promises, just honest, careful work. Remember when he couldn't even work the register? Bridget appeared beside me, grinning. Now look at him. Look at all of them, I said. The new location gleamed, ready for its first customers. But more impressive than the shiny equipment and fresh paint was the transformation of my family. Bo walked in through the front door, carrying his signature opening day flowers. Place looks perfect. You ready for the ribbon cutting? Almost. I turned to my family. First, I need to show you something. I led them to the front of the store, where a large frame hung covered by a cloth. With a deep breath, I pulled the fabric away. There, beautifully displayed, was the original Sweet Victory business plan I'd presented at that fateful family dinner. The one they'd dismissed. Beside it hung the newspaper articles, awards, and photos documenting our success. And below them all, a new sign. Sweet Victory South, managed by Kyson Grant. Sawyer! Kyson's voice cracked. You've earned this, I said. All of you have. Mom touched the frame gently. I wish we could go back and do it differently. We can't, I replied, but we can do better going forward. The mayor arrived for the ribbon cutting, along with local press and a crowd of eager customers. As cameras flashed, I handed the scissors to Kyson. This is your moment, I said. You built this location from the ground up, the right way this time. He shook his head. We built it together. He offered me the other handle of the scissors. Family business, remember? As we cut the ribbon together, I saw tears in Dad's eyes. Not the disappointed ones I'd grown used to, but proud ones, finally seeing both his children succeeding on their own terms. The morning rush was intense, but my family moved like a well-oiled machine. Kyson expedited orders with calm efficiency. Mom charmed customers with genuine warmth. Dad's organizational systems kept everything running smoothly. During a brief lull, Bo pulled me aside. You know, revenge would have been easier than redemption. Easier, maybe. I watched Kyson patiently training a new employee, but not sweeter. The day flew by in a blur of customers and congratulations. As we closed up, my family gathered around a table, sharing leftover pastries and stories from the day. Remember my first morning shift? Kyson laughed. I nearly set the kitchen on fire. Remember our first business class presentation? Dad added. We were so nervous. Remember when we thought a bakery was just selling cupcakes? Mom smiled at me. We were wrong about so many things. But you learned, I said. That's what matters. Kyson raised his coffee cup. To sweet victory, both locations. To family, Dad added, and second chances. To doing things the right way, Mom chimed in. I looked around at my family, really looked at them. The arrogance was gone from Kyson's eyes, replaced by earned confidence. The dismissiveness had vanished from my parents' faces, transformed into genuine respect. To all of it, I said, raising my cup. The failures that taught us, the success we built, and the family we became. Through the windows, both sweet victory signs glowed in the evening darkness, beacons of what we'd built together. Not just successful businesses, but a stronger family, forged in the heat of early morning ovens and tempered by hard-earned wisdom. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving your worth to others, but in helping them discover their own. And as I watched my family close up their new bakery, their real achievement, I knew we'd all finally learned that lesson. The revenge I'd planned had turned into redemption, and that was the sweetest success of all.
The signature at the bottom of the document made my blood run cold. I knew that elegant cursive anywhere. I'd seen it on birthday cards and notes stuck to my refrigerator for years. Mara, my own sister, had forged my signature on documents that made it look like I'd been stealing from the company for months. My name is Audrey, and until today I was a senior financial analyst at Morton & Pierce Investment Group. Now I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot, a cardboard box of personal items in my back seat, trying to make sense of how my life imploded in less than 24 hours. We have substantial evidence of fund misappropriation, Mr. Pierce had said this morning, sliding the documents across his desk. I'm disappointed, Audrey. We trusted you. This isn't my signature, I'd protested, my hands shaking as I flipped through page after page of falsified records. I would never... The forensic accountant confirmed everything. He'd cut me off with a wave of his hand. Security will escort you out. We'll be pressing charges. My phone buzzes now. Another message from Mom. Mara told us everything. How could you do this to the family name, to your sister's reputation at the firm? I switch off my phone and lean my forehead against the steering wheel. Of course, Mara got to them first. She's always been one step ahead, the golden child who could do no wrong. Even now, as she orchestrates my downfall, they believe her version without question. Audrey? A tap on my window makes me jump. It's Dean from IT, looking concerned. Are you okay? I heard what happened. I roll down the window, wiping my eyes. Did you hear their version or the truth? I'm not sure I know either yet, he says carefully. But something doesn't add up. Mara's been acting strange lately, especially around Theo from accounting. Theo? I sit up straighter. What do you mean? They've been having a lot of closed-door meetings. Last week I overheard them arguing about some kind of timeline. Dean glances over his shoulder. Look, I should get back inside, but... He hesitates, then scribbles something on a sticky note. This is my personal number. If you need anything, call me. As he walks away, I unfold the note. Below his number, he's written, check the server access logs from last month. Mara's login. After hours. My hands are steadier now as I start the car. I drive to the coffee shop where Mara and I used to meet every Sunday. Before she got her promotion, before things changed. I know she'll be here. It's where she holds her afternoon meetings now. Sure enough, I spot her through the window sitting with Theo. Their heads are close together, voices low. I park across the street and watch as Theo slides a USB drive across the table. Everything's there, I read his lips saying. No one will trace it back to us. Mara's smile is triumphant as she tucks the drive into her purse. The same smile she wore at dinner last week when she announced her upcoming promotion to partner, a position I'd been in line for. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Dad. We need to talk about this, sweetheart. Come home. I start typing a response, then delete it. They won't believe me. Not yet. Not without proof. But I've got something now. Dean's tip about the server logs. the USB drive, and most importantly, I know Theo is involved. Mara exits the coffee shop, her designer heels clicking on the sidewalk. She passes right by my car without noticing me, still wearing that self-satisfied smile. 5 years of sisterhood destroyed for a promotion and a corner office. I pull out Dean's note and add it to a fresh document on my phone titled Evidence. Below it I write, coffee shop meeting, USB drive, Theo involved. It's not much, but it's a start. My apartment keycard doesn't work when I get home. They've already locked me out. The security guard watches sympathetically as I fill a suitcase with essentials. Corporate says you have an hour to clear out, he tells me. As I pack, I find a photo of Mara and me from last Christmas, arms around each other, smiling. I turn it face down in the drawer. The sister in that photo is gone, replaced by someone who could forge my signature, steal my career, and turn my family against me without hesitation. Game on, sis, I whisper, closing my suitcase. You taught me well. Never leave a paper trail. But you forgot one thing. I know all your secrets too. And I've got nothing left to lose. 6 months into my new life in Boston. And I barely recognize myself in the mirror. Gone is the polished financial analyst with designer suits and perfectly styled hair. The woman staring back at me has sharper eyes and a determined set to her jaw. I've learned that revenge requires patience and a complete reinvention. My phone lights up with a text from Dean. Mara's been promoted to managing director. Theo's right behind her. Thought you should know. I'm typing a response when my new boss calls me into her office. Audrey, I need your eyes on something. Sandra waves me over to her desk at the boutique consulting firm where I now work under an old college friend's recommendation. These numbers don't add up. I scan the spreadsheet, spotting the discrepancy immediately. It's the kind of financial sleight of hand I've become expert at recognizing. Someone's trying to hide unauthorized transfers, I explain, highlighting the relevant cells. See how they've buried it in the quarterly reports? Sandra's eyes narrow. Just like you said happened at Morton and Pierce. Similar technique, I agree carefully. We both know my history, or the version I chose to share. Want me to dig deeper? Please do. She pauses, studying me. You know, for someone who supposedly embezzled millions, you're remarkably good at catching others doing it. I meet her gaze steadily. Funny how that works, isn't it? Back at my desk, I open my private email to find a message from an anonymous account. Interested in the truth about Mara G, meet me at Café Luna, 7 p.m. tonight. I trace the IP address. It's from Morton and Pierce's network. My heart races, but I've learned not to trust easily. I text Dean. Know anyone still in IT who can check outgoing emails today? His response comes quickly. Lexi from accounting sent it. She's Mara's new protégé, but word is they're not getting along. At 7 p.m. sharp, I spot Lexi sitting alone in the cafe's corner, nervously shredding a napkin. She's younger than I expected, probably fresh out of college. I know what they did to you, she blurts out as I sit down. I found the original documents, before they were altered. Mara makes me process similar transactions now, but they're getting sloppy. Why tell me this? Because she's going to do the same thing to me. Lexi's voice shakes. I know too much, and she's already setting me up as a fall guy, just like she did to you. I lean back, studying her. Prove it. She slides her phone across the table. On it are photos of documents, transfer records, emails between Mara and Theo, server logs. My hands itch to grab it, but I force myself to remain calm. Why not take this to the police? They've got friends in the DA's office now. Lexi pulls the phone back. Besides, half of these documents I shouldn't have access to. I'd be arrested before Mara. A waiter approaches and we both fall silent. When he leaves, Lexi leans forward. I can help you. I can get you more proof. At what cost? Protection. When it all comes out, I want immunity. And a recommendation for a new job. Somewhere far from Mara's reach. I consider her offer. Send copies of everything to this email, I say, writing down my secure address. But if you're playing me, remember, I've got nothing left to lose. Later that night, my laptop pings with an incoming email. Dozens of files, each one a piece of the puzzle I've been trying to solve. As I scroll through them, my phone rings. It's Mom. "Audrey, please come home for Dad's birthday next month. The family misses you." "Does Mara miss me too?" I ask coldly. Mom sighs. "She's worried about you, living alone in Boston. She says you've been sending her threatening emails." I sit up straight. "What emails?" "Something about exposing the truth." "Sweetheart, you need to let this go. Mara's trying to protect the family name by not pressing charges." My laugh is bitter. "Of course she is." I end the call and immediately text Dean. "Mara's creating a paper trail, making me look unstable." "Be careful," he responds. "She's got the board wrapped around her finger now. Whatever you're planning, make it bulletproof." I open my evidence folder, adding Lexi's files to my growing collection. 6 months of careful research, witness statements, and financial records. But Mara's latest move means I need to accelerate my timeline. "Game's changing, sis," I mutter, creating a new folder labeled Phase 2. "Time to remind you why you should have feared the quiet one." "Ms. Blake will see you now," the receptionist announces, gesturing toward the corner office of the Boston Herald's investigative department. I straighten my blazer and grab my briefcase, containing months of carefully organized evidence. Vivian Blake isn't what I expected. Instead of the hardened investigative journalist I'd imagined, she's relaxed in yoga pants and a designer sweater, feet propped on her desk. "So," she says, not looking up from my file, "you're the whistleblower Dean told me about? The sister story." I prefer to think of it as corporate fraud with a family twist. That gets her attention. She swings her feet down and leans forward. "Show me what you've got." I spread the documents across her desk. Server logs, transaction records, Lexi's photos, even screenshots of the fake threatening emails Mara's been sending herself from spoofed accounts. "Impressive," Vivian murmurs, examining a particularly damning email chain between Mara and Theo. "But why come to me? Why not the SEC?" "Because Mara's too smart for that. She's got friends in regulatory bodies now. I need someone who can't be bought." "And you think that's me?" "I think you've built a career exposing corporate corruption. And I think you understand what it's like to be underestimated." Vivian's lips twitch. "Dean said you were good." She taps the files. "This is solid groundwork, but we need more. Direct testimony, insider confirmation." "I've got Lexi ready to talk." "The protégé?" Vivian shakes her head. "Not enough. We need someone higher up, someone with real authority." My phone buzzes, a text from Dean. Theo's asking questions about old server access, getting nervous. "What about Theo?" I suggest. "He's Mara's right hand, but he's also the weak link. If we apply pressure..." "Now you're thinking like a journalist." Vivian grabs her phone. "I know someone in the SEC who owes me a favor. Let's see how Theo handles a surprise audit." As we strategize, my phone rings. It's Sandra from work. "Audrey, remember those suspicious transfers you flagged? They lead back to Morton and Pierce. The board wants to meet with you tomorrow." After leaving Vivian's office, I find Dean waiting in the lobby. He's grown his beard out since I left Morton and Pierce, but his kind eyes haven't changed. "Thought you might need coffee after that," he says, holding out a cup. "How'd it go?" "Vivian's on board, but we need more ammunition." I take a sip, savouring the familiar comfort of our coffee ritual. "How well do you know Theo?" "Well enough to know he's been drinking at O'Malley's every night this week, alone." I raise an eyebrow. "Really?" "Don't do anything stupid, Audrey." Dean touches my arm. "Mara's dangerous when cornered." "So am I." I check my watch. "I should go. I have that board meeting tomorrow." "Let me drive you home, at least." In the car, Dean's quiet for a while before speaking. "You know, when this all started, I thought you were just angry. But it's more than that, isn't it?" "It's about justice," I say, watching the city lights blur past, and making sure she can't do this to anyone else. He pulls up to my building but doesn't unlock the doors. "Just be careful, okay? Some people are worth losing everything for. I'm not sure Mara's one of them." I turn to face him, suddenly aware of how close we are. "I'm not losing everything. I'm gaining something too." His hand finds mine in the darkness. "Yeah? What's that?" Myself. I squeeze his hand, then let go. And maybe something else too. Later that night, my laptop pings with an email from Vivian. Theo took the bait. SEC audit scheduled for next week. He's panicking. I'm drafting a response when someone knocks on my door. Through the peephole, I see Lexi looking terrified. Mara knows, she gasps as I let her in. Someone told her I copied the files. She's cleaning house, deleting everything. It's okay, I assure her, though my mind is racing. We have backups. You don't understand. Lexi pulls out her phone, showing me an email. She's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow, the same one you're invited to. She's trying to get ahead of the story, I realize. Frame it her way before we can expose her. What are we going to do? I grab my phone, texting Dean and Vivian. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Mara's making her move. Time for plan B. Then I turn to Lexi. How good are you at public speaking? Her eyes widen. Why? Because tomorrow we're going to give them a show they'll never forget. I pull out my laptop, and you're going to help me write the script. Dad's birthday party feels like walking into a minefield. The moment I step into my childhood home, conversations drop to whispers. Mom's perfectly manicured smile doesn't reach her eyes as she hugs me. Audrey! We didn't think you'd come! She grips my shoulders, examining me like I'm a stranger. You look different. Boston agrees with me, I say, scanning the room. Where's Mara? Oh, running late as usual. Such a busy executive, you know how it is. I do know. I've memorized Mara's schedule better than she has. Dad emerges from his study and his face lights up. There's my girl. His hug is genuine, warming something inside me I thought had frozen. Come see what your sister sent, quite the extravagant gift. On his desk sits a gleaming Rolex, the exact model I'd mentioned buying him last year, before everything fell apart. Beautiful, I manage. Must be doing well at Morton and Pierce. Speaking of which, Mom interjects, she's being featured in Financial Weekly, rising star under 40E or something like that. The doorbell rings and suddenly she's there. Mara sweeps in like a hurricane in designer clothes, air kissing everyone's cheeks. Audrey! She freezes for a split second before recovering. What a surprise. How's the new job? Enlightening, I reply, watching her face. We should catch up. I'd love to hear about that SEC audit coming up. Her smile tightens imperceptibly. Before she can respond, Theo appears behind her, looking worse than when I last saw him. Dark circles under his eyes, slightly rumpled suit. Theo, darling, you remember my sister? Mara's voice is honey-sweet poison. How could I forget? His handshake is clammy. Still in Boston? Still drinking at O'Malley's? I counter quietly. He drops my hand like it burns. Dad calls everyone to dinner, and I find myself seated between Mom and Theo, directly across from Mara. The perfect staging for what comes next. Pass the wine, Theo? I ask innocently. As he reaches for the bottle, his sleeve rides up, revealing fresh ink on his wrist. Nice tattoo. When did you get that? Last week, he mumbles. Funny. I take a sip of wine. Isn't that right when the SEC announced their surprise audit? Mara's fork clatters against her plate. Audrey, dear, how's your love life? Still single? Actually, I've been seeing someone. He works in IT security. Fascinating field, all about digital footprints and server logs. Mom jumps in, desperate to change the subject. Did everyone see the lovely article about Mara? Not yet, I smile. But I heard Vivian Blake is working on quite an interesting piece about Morton and Pierce. Theo chokes on his wine. Mara's face goes pale. Who's Vivian Blake? Dad asks. Oh, just the most respected investigative journalist in Boston, I explain. She has a nose for corporate fraud. Speaking of which, Theo, how's Lexi doing? She quit, Mara cuts in sharply. Personal reasons. Really? I had coffee with her yesterday. She seemed fine to me. The tension at the table is thick enough to cut. Mum's hands shake as she serves dessert. Audrey, Mara's voice is steel wrapped in silk. Can we talk privately? In Dad's study, she drops the act. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. Now. Or what? You'll forge more documents. Send yourself more threatening emails. I'm trying to protect this family's reputation. Everything I did for us. No, I step closer. You did it for yourself. And now you're scared because Theo's cracking, Lexi's talking, and your perfect house of cards is about to collapse. You have no proof. I pull out my phone, playing a recording. Theo's voice slurred but clear, confessing everything at O'Malley's last night. That's just the beginning, I whisper. I learned from the best, sis. Never leave a paper trail unless it's someone else's. A knock at the door makes us both jump. It's Dad. Everything okay in here? His eyes move between us, concerned. Perfect, Mara says brightly. Just catching up. As we return to the party, my phone buzzes with a text from Dean. Vivian's story runs tomorrow. Theo just called her office wanting to talk. I watch Mara charm the room, laughing at Dad's jokes, refilling Mom's wine. She thinks she's won, that she's still in control, but I see the cracks in her facade, the way her hands tremble slightly as she raises her glass. Happy birthday, Dad, I say, hugging him goodbye. Sorry, but I have an early meeting tomorrow. With who? Mara asks sharply. I pause at the door, savouring the moment. The Boston Herald. They're doing a fascinating story on family dynamics in corporate America. You should read it. The look on her face as I leave is worth every second of waiting. Vivian's office is chaos when I arrive the next morning. Phones ringing off the hook, reporters huddled around monitors, and in the centre of it all, Theo sitting with his head in his hands. Your sister's been calling every 10 minutes, Vivian says, waving me over. The story's gone viral. Morton and Pierce's stock dropped 12% in the first hour of trading. I want immunity, Theo blurts out as I approach. I'll tell you everything, but I want a deal. That's not my decision, I reply, sitting across from him. But Vivian has friends at the SEC who might be interested in what you have to say. His confession spills out like a burst dam. The original scheme, how Mara convinced him to help frame me, the years of cooking books and falsifying records. Vivian's recorder catches every word. She said it was just once, he says, voice cracking. Just to get rid of you because you were asking too many questions. But then it became a pattern. My phone buzzes, Dean's calling. You need to see this, he says when I answer. Mara's doing damage control. Turn on CNBC. Vivian flips on the office TV. There's my sister perfectly composed in a power suit, addressing reporters outside Morton and Pierce. These allegations are completely unfounded, she's saying. My sister has a history of mental health issues and a vendetta against this company. We have documentation proving... You mean these documents? Lexi's voice cuts through the crowd. The camera swings to show her holding up a thick folder. The ones you made me forge last week? The press erupts. Mara's perfect mask slips for just a second before she recovers, but it's too late. The camera's caught it all. Send everything to the SEC, I tell Theo. Every email, every document, every conversation you remember. It's your only chance. He nods numbly, then looks up at me. I'm sorry, Audrey. I really am. Save it for the prosecutors. Back at my apartment, Dean's waiting with coffee and takeout. You okay? He asks as I collapse onto the couch. I should be celebrating, I say, staring at the ceiling. Why doesn't it feel like a victory? He sits beside me, close enough that our shoulders touch. Because it's not over yet, and because it's family. My phone lights up with a text from Mom. Please tell me this isn't true. What have you done? Before I can respond, another message appears, from Dad. I found the original documents in Mara's old room. We need to talk. I should go see him, I say, but Dean catches my hand. Not tonight. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense. He's right. By morning, the story has exploded. Vivian's article is everywhere, complete with Theo's confession and Lexi's documents. Morton and Pierce announces an emergency board meeting. The SEC launches a formal investigation. We've got her, Vivian says when I reach her office, but she's not going down without a fight. She's right. Within hours, Mara's legal team releases a statement claiming all evidence was fabricated, along with medical records suggesting I have a history of paranoid delusions. Those are fake, I say immediately, but Vivian's already ahead of me. Already confirmed with your actual doctors. She's desperate, making mistakes. My phone rings. It's Mara. After a year of silence, seeing her name on my screen feels surreal. What do you want? I answer. A truce, she says, her voice tight. Name your price. Whatever they're paying you for this hit piece, I'll double it. This isn't about money, Mara. It never was. Then what? Revenge? Congratulations, you've ruined me. Happy now? No, I say quietly. I'm not happy. I'm sad that my sister turned out to be exactly who I feared she was. There's a long pause. The board meeting's tomorrow, she finally says. Last chance to back down. See you there, sis. After I hang up, Dean pulls me into a hug. Whatever happens tomorrow, you're not alone anymore. I lean into him, allowing myself this moment of weakness. I know. My phone buzzes one last time, a message from Lexi. Mara just called an emergency meeting with her legal team. She's planning something big for tomorrow. Let her plan, I text back. We've got something bigger. I open my laptop, pulling up the final piece of evidence I've been saving. The original security footage from the day Mara forged my signature, captured by a camera she didn't know existed. Ready for tomorrow? Dean asks, watching me work. I think of Mum's disappointment, Dad's confusion, the family dinners that will never be the same. Then I think of all the other potential victims I'm saving from my sister's schemes. Ready, I say, hitting send on an email to Vivian. Time to end this. The Morton and Pierce lobby feels smaller than I remember. Security guards eye me warily as Dean and I walk through the metal detectors. My old badge, reactivated for today's board meeting, feels heavy around my neck. Ms. Gomez, a familiar voice calls. Mr. Pierce himself stands by the elevators, looking older than I remember. I hope you understand the gravity of today's meeting. I do, I reply. Do you? The elevator ride to the 40th floor is tense. Dean's hand finds mine, squeezing gently. When the doors open, we're greeted by a circus, reporters held back by security, board members huddled in groups, and Vivian Blake holding court near the conference room. They're all here, she murmurs as we pass. SEC investigators, major shareholders, even your parents. My steps falter. My parents? Mara invited them, trying to make this personal instead of professional. Inside the boardroom, Mara sits at the head of the table, flanked by lawyers. She looks immaculate as always, but there's a wildness in her eyes I've never seen before. Welcome, everyone, she begins as the room fills. We're here to address some unfortunate allegations. Save it, Mr. Pierce interrupts. The SEC has questions about certain financial discrepancies. Which I can explain, Mara says smoothly. But first, I'd like to address the source of these malicious claims. My sister Audrey has a documented history of... Actually, I cut in, standing up. Let's talk about documentation. Specifically, this security footage from last year. I nod to Dean, who connects his laptop to the projector. The video plays, crystal clear. Mara at my desk after hours, practicing my signature before forging it on company documents. The room erupts. Mara's lawyers huddle around her, whispering frantically. I see Mom cover her mouth in shock, Dad's face hardening with disappointment. That footage is inadmissible, one lawyer shouts. It was obtained illegally. Wrong, Dean speaks up. As head of IT security, I maintained all surveillance systems legally. This footage has been authenticated by 3 independent experts. Mara stands, her chair scraping loudly. This proves nothing except that I signed some documents. As senior partner, I had authority. To forge signatures? To frame your sister for embezzlement? Vivian steps forward, dropping a thick file on the table. We have Theo's full confession, Lexi's testimony, and every document you falsified over the past 3 years. Theo? Mara laughs, but it sounds hollow. A drunk who's angry about being passed over for promotion? And Lexi, my disgruntled ex-assistant? The boardroom doors burst open. Theo walks in, followed by 2 SEC investigators. He looks sober, pressed, and terrified. Tell them what you told us, one investigator says. Theo can't meet Mara's eyes. It started with Audrey. Mara said we needed to remove her because she'd discovered irregularities in our international accounts. After that, it became a pattern. Every quarter, more adjustments, more cover-ups. You're lying, Mara's composure cracks. You helped me. You were part of everything. Yes, Theo says quietly. That's why I kept records. Insurance, I called it. Every email, every conversation, every transaction. Mr. Pierce stands slowly. Mara, is this true? She looks around the room wildly like a cornered animal. Her eyes land on our parents. Mom, Dad, you know me. I did what I had to do, for the family, for our reputation. Stop. Dad's voice is heavy with grief. Just stop, Mara. The SEC investigators move forward. Ms. Gomez, we need you to come with us. What happens next seems to move in slow motion. Mara lunges for her laptop, probably trying to delete evidence, but Lexi's faster. She grabs it first, backing away as Mara reaches for her. It's over, I say softly. Let it go. For a moment our eyes meet. I see the sister I used to know, the one who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with math homework. Then she straightens, smooths her jacket, and turns to the investigators. I want my lawyer present for any questions. As they lead her out, Mum starts crying. Dad puts his arm around her, then looks at me. We should have listened to you. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. The boardroom slowly empties. Dean takes my hand again, and this time I don't let go. You okay? He asks. No, I answer honestly. But I will be. My phone buzzes, a text from Vivian. Stories going live in an hour. Want to comment? I look around the room where everything ended and began. Not today, I text back. Today's for family. Let's get out of here, Dean suggests. Get some coffee? I smile, feeling lighter than I have in years. Coffee sounds perfect. The courthouse steps are swarming with reporters as I make my way inside. 3 months after the board meeting, it's finally time for Mara's arraignment. The headlines scream corporate scandal of the decade and sister versus sister, the Morton and Pierce conspiracy. Ready for this? Dean asks, adjusting his tie. He's taken the day off to be here, just like he's been there every step of the way. Before I can answer, Vivian appears, notepad in hand. They're offering her a deal. 5 years if she pleads guilty and returns the money. She won't take it, I say. She'll fight. Inside, the courtroom is packed. I spot Theo sitting with his lawyer looking haunted. Lexi's there too, surrounded by SEC investigators. Mum and Dad sit in the front row, leaving space between them. The bailiff calls for order as Mara enters in handcuffs. Her designer suit can't hide how pale she's become, how the past 3 months in custody have worn her down. For a moment our eyes meet, and I see something I've never seen before in my sister's face. Fear. How does the defendant plead? The judge asks. Mara's lawyer stands. Your Honour, before entering a plea, we'd like to present new evidence suggesting my client was herself a victim of corporate espionage. Objection. The prosecutor jumps up. This is an arraignment, not a trial. Sustained. The judge looks irritated. Ms. Gomez, your plea? Mara stands slowly. Not guilty. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. Dad shakes his head. Mum starts crying again. During the recess, Theo approaches me in the hallway. She's going to try to pin everything on me, he says, voice shaking. Her lawyers found inconsistencies in my testimony. Because you were drunk when you gave it, I ask. He nods miserably. I've been sober 60 days now, but they'll use it against me. Say I was unreliable, confused. We have the footage, I remind him, and Lexi's documents. Mara claims Lexi forged those too, says she was trying to take her job. Before I can respond, shouting erupts near the courtroom doors. Mara's being led back in when she suddenly breaks away from her guards, rushing toward us. You ruined everything, she screams at me. I built this life from nothing, and you destroyed it because you were jealous. Security guards grab her arms, but she keeps struggling. Tell them the truth, Theo. Tell them who really orchestrated the whole thing. That's enough, the judge's voice booms through the hallway. Get the defendant under control, or she'll be remanded without bail. As they drag Mara away, I notice something odd. She's smiling. It's the same smile she wore the day she got me fired. She's planning something, I tell Dean later at the coffee shop. I know that look. He sets down his cup. The prosecutor called. They found a laptop in Mara's apartment with encrypted files. They're trying to crack it now. My phone rings. It's Lexi, sounding panicked. Mara's lawyer just submitted new evidence, emails between you and me planning to frame her, but they're fake. I never sent them. She's been preparing for this, I realise. All those months before we exposed her, she was creating a backup plan. There's more, Lexi continues. They're claiming the security footage was doctored. They have an expert witness ready to testify. I hang up and turn to Dean. Can you prove the footage is authentic? Already working on it. But Audrey... He hesitates. There's something else. Someone broke into the IT department last night. The original server logs are missing. My coffee goes cold as we piece it together. Mara's not just fighting the charges, she's trying to flip the entire narrative. Make it look like I orchestrated an elaborate scheme to frame her out of jealousy. We need to talk to Vivian, I say, standing up. If Mara wants to play this game, we'll beat her at it one last time. But when we reach Vivian's office, she's waiting with news of her own. The SEC just called, she says grimly. They found something in Mara's financial records that changes everything, something that leads back 15 years. To our father's company. My world tilts sideways. What are you saying? I'm saying this goes deeper than we thought. Mara wasn't working alone, and tomorrow in court, she's going to reveal who really taught her how to commit fraud. I sink into a chair, remembering Dad's face when he found those documents in Mara's room, the way he's been avoiding my calls lately. Well, I say finally, looks like tomorrow's going to be interesting. Dean squeezes my shoulder. Whatever happens, we face it together. I nod, watching the sun set over Boston's skyline. The truth about our family is about to get much uglier, but for the first time, I'm not afraid of it. The courtroom falls silent as Dad takes the stand. His hands shake as he's sworn in, but his voice is steady when he speaks. Yes, I taught Mara everything she knows about creative accounting. It started at my own company, small adjustments to keep us afloat during the recession. I never meant for it to go this far. Mara sits perfectly still, watching him testify. Mum's already left the courtroom, unable to bear it. And Audrey? The prosecutor asks. Did she know about any of this? No, Dad sighs heavily. She was always too honest. That's why Mara saw her as a threat at Morton and Pierce. She knew Audrey would eventually figure it out. I feel Dean's hand slip into mine as Dad continues describing years of financial manipulation, of teaching Mara to hide money through shell companies and false documentation. The same techniques she used to frame me. During the recess, Mara's lawyer approaches with a final plea deal. Your sister's willing to testify against your father in exchange for a reduced sentence. Of course she is, I say, watching Mara whisper with her legal team. She's still trying to win. Back in session, Mara takes the stand. She's ditched her power suits for a simple blouse, playing the role of Daddy's corrupted little girl. I was just following what I was taught, she says, tears glistening. When Audrey started investigating the accounts, I panicked. I'd watched Dad handle whistleblowers before, so I did what he would have done. That's a lie. Dad stands up, but the bailiff orders him back to his seat. Vivian leans forward, whispering in my ear. She's throwing him under the bus to save herself. Classic Mara. But something's different this time. As Mara weaves her story of being manipulated by our father, I see the mask slipping. Her hands keep fidgeting with her watch, her tell when she's lying. During cross-examination, the prosecutor pulls out a surprise. We've recovered data from your encrypted laptop, Ms. Gomez. Would you like to explain these emails from 8 years ago before you even worked at Morton and Pierce? Mara's face goes white as the emails appear on the courtroom screen. Messages to offshore accounts, plans for embezzlement schemes, all predating her time with Dad's company. You weren't following anyone's playbook, the prosecutor continues. You were teaching your father your methods, weren't you? The courtroom erupts. Mara's lawyer demands a recess, but it's too late. The truth is finally out, written in Mara's own words. Dad stares at her, realization dawning. You said you learned it all from me. Because you wanted to believe it, Mara snaps, her facade cracking completely. Poor, weak Dad, so eager to think he was the master manipulator. You were just another mark. The judge calls for order as Mara's taken back into custody. Her lawyer immediately starts talking plea deals, but the prosecutor looks to me first. It's your call, Ms. Gomez. You're the primary victim here. I look at Mara. Really look at her. Behind the designer clothes and practiced smile, I see something broken that was probably always there. Offer her the original deal, I say. 5 years. But she has to make full restitution to everyone she hurt. Later, outside the courthouse, Dad catches up to me. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I should have seen it sooner. We all should have, I reply. But we saw what we wanted to see. Your mother and I, we're selling the house, paying back everything I took, starting fresh. Good. I hug him, smelling the familiar aftershave. That's what second chances are for. Dean's waiting by his car, talking with Vivian about her upcoming book deal. Theo and Lexi stand nearby, both looking relieved it's over. Ready to go home? Dean asks as I approach. Actually, I pull out my resignation letter from the consulting firm. I have a better idea. He reads it, eyebrows raising. You're starting your own company. A financial oversight consultancy, I explain, helping companies identify and prevent fraud. Vivian's already agreed to be on the board. Using everything Mara taught you against people like her, he grins. Perfect karma. Want to help? I ask. I need a good IT security expert. His answer is a kiss that makes Vivian wolf whistle and Theo awkwardly look away. That evening, I visit Mara one last time before she's transferred to federal prison. She sits across from me in her orange jumpsuit, still somehow looking like she's wearing Prada. I don't expect you to forgive me, she says. I don't forgive you, I reply. But I understand you now, and that's worth something. She nods slowly. You won, little sister. Fair and square. No, Mara, I just stopped letting you win. Walking out of the prison, I delete her number from my phone. Some family ties need to be cut to heal properly. But as Dean drives us home through the Boston night, I feel lighter. The truth cost us our old family, but it gave me something better. A life built on honesty, surrounded by people who earned their place in my story.
I stared at the bank statement in my trembling hands, the numbers swimming before my eyes. 27 years of blind trust shattered in an instant. The secret account my mother had been maintaining in my name contained over $380,000, money I'd earned but never knew existed. My name is Margaret, and until this morning, I thought I was doing okay, managing my finances under my mother's guidance. Now I know I've been living a carefully orchestrated lie. Margaret, honey, are you home? Mom's voice echoed through the house, making me jump. I quickly folded the statement and shoved it into my jacket pocket. In the study, I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd found the statement while searching for a stapler in her desk drawer. The same desk where she'd sat me down countless times to lecture me about financial responsibility. Mom appeared in the doorway, perfectly put together as always. What are you doing in here? Just needed a stapler, I said, holding up the object like a shield. For work documents, she smiled that knowing smile that had always made me feel safe, but now made my skin crawl. You know you can use my office anytime, sweetie. I've always said that transparency is important in this family. I almost choked on the hypocrisy. Thanks, Mom. I gathered my papers, careful to keep the statement hidden. I should get going. Meeting Soleil for coffee. Oh? Her eyebrows lifted slightly. I thought you were trying to save money this month. It's just coffee, I said, the familiar guilt creeping in before anger pushed it aside. My own money. She'd been controlling my own money. Well, remember what we talked about regarding unnecessary expenses? She adjusted a picture frame on her desk. Me at my college graduation, beaming while she stood beside me, one hand firmly on my shoulder. Maybe Soleil could come here instead. No, I need to get out. I grabbed my bag, nearly knocking over a chair in my haste to leave. Don't wait up. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Soleil at our favorite coffee shop, sliding the statement across the table. My cousin's eyes widened as she read the numbers. Holy shit, Mags. She looked up at me, her coffee forgotten. All this time. Every paycheck since I started working. She's been skimming off the top, managing my money. I made air quotes with my fingers, telling me I need to budget better, that I'm not responsible enough to handle my own finances. While sitting on nearly 400 grand of your money, Soleil's voice rose, drawing looks from nearby tables. She lowered it again. That's not management, that's theft. She probably thinks she's protecting me, I said, surprising myself by defending her. Old habits die hard. You know how she is. Stop it. Soleil reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Stop making excuses for her. This is abuse, Margaret. Financial abuse. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent my whole life believing my mother knew best, that her strict control was love. Now everything looked different, tainted. I found something else, too. I pulled out my phone, showing Soleil the emails I'd discovered. She's been intercepting my bank statements, credit card offers, everything. She has complete access to my accounts, but I can barely see my own balance without her hovering over my shoulder. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath, my hand steady now as I picked up my coffee. I'm going to take it all back, not just the money, my life, my independence, everything. But I need to be smart about it. You need a lawyer, Soleil said immediately. I need more than that. I need a plan. I pulled out a notebook, flipping to a clean page. Mom's always preaching about the importance of careful planning, right? Well, I learned from the best. Soleil's smile turned wicked. Count me in, whatever you need. As we began plotting, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Remember to save your receipt from the coffee shop for your expense tracking. I showed it to Soleil, who rolled her eyes. She has no idea what's coming, does she? No, I said, closing the message without responding. But she will. I'm done being the good, obedient daughter she can manipulate. It's time she learned that her perfect little girl has grown up, and she's not going to like what she sees. I opened my notebook and started writing, each word a brick in the foundation of my independence. The game of control and submission that had defined our relationship was about to change dramatically. And for once, I would be the one making the rules. An untraceable account. Devin leaned back in his leather office chair, studying me over his reading glasses. Margaret, what exactly are we dealing with here? I slid the bank statement across his desk. His eyebrows shot up as he reviewed the numbers. Then he let out a low whistle. Your mother did this. Every penny I've earned since I was 16, I said. She's been protecting me from my own money. Soleil, who'd insisted on coming with me to the lawyer's office, spoke up from her chair beside me. We need to know what options Margaret has. Legally speaking. Devin removed his glasses, polishing them with his tie as he thought. Technically, if your mother had authorization to manage these accounts, which she made me give her when I was 18, I interrupted. She said it was the responsible thing to do. Then she hasn't broken any laws. Morally questionable, absolutely, but legally. He spread his hands apologetically. I don't care about pressing charges, I said. I just want control of my own life, my own money. Now that's something we can work with. Devin pulled out a legal pad. First step, we set up new accounts at a different bank. Your mother won't have access or even know they exist. She checks everything, I warned. My mail, my email, my phone records. Then we go digital, Soleil suggested. Paperless statements, secure email address she doesn't know about. Exactly, Devin agreed. And I know someone who can help with the next part. A business consultant named Hector. He specializes in startups and investment strategies. My phone buzzed. Mom's daily check-in text. Don't forget we're having dinner with the Petersons tonight. Wear something professional. I ignored it. Tell me more about Hector. 2 hours later, I sat across from Hector at a small cafe 3 towns over, far from my mother's usual haunts. He had kind eyes and a quick smile that put me at ease immediately. "So," he said, spreading out some documents between us, "Devin tells me you're interested in starting a business." "I have skills," I said. "I've been managing social media campaigns for other companies for years, but my mother always said striking out on my own would be too risky." "The biggest risk in business is letting fear stop you," Hector replied. "Show me what you've got." I pulled out my portfolio, walking him through campaigns I'd created. His eyes lit up as he flipped through the pages. "This is impressive work," he said. "Why are you still doing this for other people when you could be building your own empire?" "Because until now, I didn't have access to startup capital." I smiled. "But things have changed. How much are we talking about?" "I can move about 50,000 without raising suspicion." "For now." Hector nodded, scribbling notes. "That's more than enough to get started. We'll need to move fast, though. Set up an LLC, create a business plan." "Margaret." A familiar voice made my blood run cold. I turned to see Mrs. Peterson, my mother's bridge partner, standing by our table. "Mrs. Peterson, what a surprise." I forced a smile, casually sliding my portfolio under some papers. "I thought you were working today," she said, eyes darting between me and Hector. "Just a quick lunch meeting," I said smoothly. "Client consultation." "Oh, how lovely. Will we see you at dinner tonight?" "Of course, wouldn't miss it." After she left, Hector raised an eyebrow. "That could be a problem." "She'll tell my mother she saw me here," I agreed. "But it might work in our favor. Let Mom think I'm just taking on extra freelance work. It'll keep her from looking too closely at what we're really doing." "Smart," he said. "But we need to be careful. One wrong move could ruin everything." I finished. "I know, but I'm done being careful. I'm done being controlled." "Then let's make this happen." Hector pulled out his laptop. "By the time your mother figures out what's going on, you'll be too established for her to stop you." My phone buzzed again. "Mrs. Peterson says she saw you at lunch. We need to talk about taking on extra work without consulting me first." I showed Hector the message. He shook his head. "You're really ready for this? Once we start, there's no going back." I thought about the hidden account, the years of manipulation, the constant control. "I'm not going back, I'm going forward, full speed ahead." "Then let's give your mother something to really talk about." Hector opened a new document and typed, "Empowered Digital Marketing, LLC." Looking at those words, I felt a thrill of excitement and fear, my first real step toward freedom. My mother had taught me everything about control. Now it was time to show her just how well I'd learned those lessons. 3 new clients this week. I high-fived Hector across our shared workspace in the co-working facility. We'd chosen this location carefully. Modern, professional, and most importantly, 20 miles from my mother's usual territory. "And that tech startup wants to triple their social media budget," Hector added, sliding a contract across the desk. "They loved your campaign strategy." I signed the paperwork with a flourish, savoring the moment. 2 months into our venture, and Empower Digital was already exceeding our projections. My phone lit up with Mom's face. I let it go to voicemail. "You can't avoid her forever," Hector said, but he was smiling. "How are you explaining all these client meetings?" "Freelance work for my old agency. She's not happy about it, but she can't argue with the extra money flowing into the account she monitors." I grinned. "Of course, she has no idea about our other accounts." The phone rang again. This time, I answered. "Margaret, where are you? It's nearly dinner time." "Working late, Mom. Big project due tomorrow." "Again, that's the 3rd time this week. I'm worried you're taking on too much. Why don't you come home and let me look over your budget? Maybe we can find a way for you to work less." I caught Hector rolling his eyes and had to stifle a laugh. "I'm fine, Mom. Really. I'll grab something here." "Well, at least tell me where you are. I can bring you a proper dinner." "No need. I'll see you later." I hung up before she could protest. "Speaking of dinner," Hector said, Our potential investors are confirmed for tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at La Maison. My stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. If this meeting went well, we could expand faster than we'd planned. Did you send them our proposal? This morning. They're particularly interested in your innovative approach to. The office door burst open, making us both jump. Mom stood in the doorway, her face flushed. Margaret Elizabeth Emerson, I tracked your phone's location. She stepped inside, taking in the modern office space, the whiteboards covered in strategy notes, and Hector's startled expression. What is this place, and who is this man? I stood up slowly, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. Mom, this is Hector, my business partner. Business partner. She spat the words like they tasted bad. What are you talking about? I'm talking about my company, Empower Digital Marketing. I gestured to the logo on the wall. We've been operational for 2 months. Mom's face went from red to white. 2 months? You started a company without telling me, without consulting me? I'm 27 years old, Mom. I don't need your consultation or permission. But the risk, the liability, the taxes. She turned to Hector. Who are you really? What are your credentials? Hector stood, extending his hand professionally. Hector Reyes, MBA from Stanford, 10 years in digital marketing consulting. Your daughter is one of the most talented strategists I've ever worked with. Mom ignored his hand. This is ridiculous. Margaret, gather your things. We're going home to discuss this. No, we're not. I walked around the desk to stand between them. I have a client meeting to prepare for. You can either accept that I'm running my own business now, or you can leave. Your choice. The phone on my desk rang. I answered it on speaker, maintaining eye contact with Mom. Empower Digital. This is Margaret speaking. Ms. Emerson, this is Janet from TechFront Solutions. We'd like to double our original contract proposal. Your preliminary campaign results are extraordinary. Mom's mouth fell open as I handled the call professionally, scheduling a meeting for the following week. After I hung up, the silence in the office was deafening. How? Mom's voice cracked. How are you funding this? That's not your concern anymore. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Is this why there have been unusual transactions in your account? Have you been diverting money into this scheme? I've been investing in my future, I corrected her. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do. Mom stood there for a long moment, her hands clenching and unclenching. Finally, she turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. After the door closed, Hector let out a low whistle. Well, that was intense. It's not over, I said, sinking back into my chair. She's going to dig into everything now. Try to find where the money's coming from. Let her dig. Hector pulled up our latest analytics report. By the time she figures it out, we'll be too successful for her to do anything about it. I nodded, turning back to our work. The confrontation I'd been dreading had come and gone, and I was still standing. More than standing, I was thriving. For the first time in my life, I felt truly powerful. The real question was, what would Mom do next? Your credit score dropped 20 points. Mom announced at breakfast, waving her iPad like a weapon. I just checked. You're monitoring my credit score? I kept my voice level, buttering my toast with deliberate calm. 3 days had passed since her office invasion, and she'd been relentless. Someone has to watch out for your financial health. You've been making some concerning decisions lately. My credit score is fine, Mom, and it's none of your business. Everything about you is my business. She sat down across from me. I raised you, supported you, guided you. Controlled me, I muttered. The doorbell rang before she could respond. Through the window, I saw Soleil's car in the driveway. Perfect timing, I said, grabbing my bag. I'm having breakfast with Soleil. But we're not finished discussing. Yes, we are. I opened the door to find Soleil already reaching for me. Emergency, she announced dramatically. Fashion crisis. Need my cousin's expert eye. Mom appeared behind me. Margaret has a doctor's appointment at 11. No, I don't, I said, stepping outside. Yes, you do. I scheduled it last week. Dr. Harrison wants to discuss your anxiety medication. I spun around. You what? I'm concerned about your recent behavior, the secretiveness, the reckless business decisions. The only thing causing me anxiety is you, I snapped. Cancel the appointment. I'm not going. In Soleil's car, I slumped against the seat. She's trying to make me look unstable. She's trying to maintain control, Soleil corrected, pulling away from the curb. But we've got bigger problems. Look what came in the mail yesterday. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from my mother's bank, addressed to her, requesting verification of some recent transfers. How did you get this? Mom's still on their mailing list from when she worked there. She showed it to me because she's worried about Aunt Roslyn. The bank flagged some suspicious patterns in her accounts. She's been searching for the money, I realized, trying to trace where I got the startup funds. And she's getting sloppy. Soleil turned into the office parking lot. You need to move faster. Inside, Hector was already in crisis mode. The investors called. Someone reached out to them with concerns about our company's stability. Let me guess, my mother. She implied you might be having a mental health crisis and shouldn't be trusted with major financial decisions. I dropped into my chair, rage building. She's trying to sabotage us. It gets worse, Hector said. She's been calling our clients. What? He pulled up an email. TechFront Solutions received a call from someone claiming to be your financial advisor, warning them about potential irregularities in our business practices. That's it. I grabbed my phone, but Soleil caught my wrist. Don't confront her, not yet. We need to handle this professionally. Agreed, Hector said. I've already contacted our lawyer. We're sending cease and desist letters to protect the company. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Dr. Harrison is concerned you missed your appointment. Coming to the office to check on you. She's on her way here, I warned. Perfect. Hector pulled out a folder. Because I have something to show her. When Mom arrived 15 minutes later, we were ready. She burst in without knocking, waving a stack of papers. Margaret, we need to discuss these transactions. Actually, Hector interrupted. We need to discuss your interference with our business. He slid a document across the desk. This is a cease and desist letter. Contact our clients again, and we'll take legal action. Mom's face reddened. How dare you threaten me? I'm trying to protect my daughter from what? I stood up. From success, from independence, from the truth about how you've been hiding my money for years. She froze. What are you talking about? The secret account, Mom. I know about all of it. That money is for your future, she sputtered. I've been protecting it for you. No, you've been stealing it from me. And now you're trying to destroy everything I've built because you can't control it. I'm calling your father, she threatened, reaching for her phone. Go ahead. Tell him how you've been embezzling from your own daughter. I'm sure he'd love to hear all about it. Mom's hand dropped. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady. You're going to stop interfering with my business. You're going to stop monitoring my accounts. And you're going to transfer every penny of my money back to me. Or what? I smiled, channeling her own cold authority. Or everyone, Dad, the family, your precious social circle, learns exactly what kind of mother you really are. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out without another word. That was badass, Soleil whispered, but Hector looked worried. You know this isn't over, right? Oh, I know, I said, watching Mom's car pull away. This is just the beginning. The annual family dinner was Mom's power play, her chance to showcase her perfect life and perfect daughter. This year, she'd invited everyone despite our ongoing Cold War. I knew why. Appearances mattered more than anything. Margaret, you're not wearing that, are you? Mom eyed my professional pantsuit as I helped set the table. What's wrong with it? That blue dress I bought you would be more appropriate. This is fine, Mom. I placed the last fork with precise alignment, one of her many lessons I couldn't shake. The doorbell rang, and the performance began. Aunt Claire, Uncle Robert, Soleil, and various other relatives filtered in, carrying dishes and forced smiles. Everyone knew something was wrong between Mom and me, but no one dared mention it. Margaret, darling. Aunt Claire air-kissed my cheeks. How's that little business of yours going? Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. Oh, she's just doing some freelance work, nothing serious. Actually, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear, Empower Digital just landed 3 major corporate clients. We're expanding next month. The room went quiet. Mom's smile tightened. How wonderful, Aunt Claire said, looking between us uncertainly. Isn't it? I pulled out my phone. In fact, our latest campaign just went viral. Want to see? Perhaps during dessert, Mom interrupted. Dinner's getting cold. We settled around the dining room table. Mom's perfect tableau of family harmony. She'd placed me directly across from her, where she could monitor every bite, every gesture. So Robert, Mom said, passing the potatoes, how's the investment firm? Uncle Robert launched into a story about market trends, but I caught Mom watching me as I typed something on my phone under the table. Margaret, she said sharply, no phones at dinner, you know the rules. Sorry, just confirming a meeting with our investors tomorrow. They're very excited about our growth projections. Soleil, sitting beside me, poorly concealed her smirk. Investors? Dad looked up from his plate. You never mentioned investors, Rosalind. Because there's nothing to mention, Mom said quickly. Margaret's just experimenting with some online marketing work. Nothing serious enough for investors. Nothing serious. I set down my fork. Our company valuation just hit 7 figures. The clatter of silverware stopped. Dad's eyebrows shot up. 7 figures? He repeated. How did you manage that so quickly? Yes, Margaret. Mom's voice could have frozen water. How did you manage that? Hard work, smart investments, and complete control over my own finances. I met her gaze steadily. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you have access to your own money. Mom's wine glass trembled slightly as she lifted it. I don't think this is appropriate dinner conversation. Why not? Isn't financial success something to celebrate? I turned to the table at large. In fact, I've learned so much about money management recently. Would anyone like to hear about the importance of maintaining transparent banking relationships? Margaret. Mom's warning tone was familiar, but it had lost its power. Or we could discuss the legal implications of unauthorized account management. That's enough? Mom slammed her hand on the table, making the plates jump. Rosalind, Dad was looking between us, confusion turning to concern. What's going on? Nothing, she said. Margaret's just being dramatic. Am I? I pulled an envelope from my bag and slid it across the table to Dad. These are bank statements showing how Mom's been hiding my earnings for years. Almost $400,000 in a secret account. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Dad opened the envelope with shaking hands. Rosalind, is this true? Mom stood up, her chair scraping back. I was protecting her, making sure she didn't waste her money on foolish things like this ridiculous business venture. The business venture that's already more successful than anything you ever achieved. The words were cruel, but I couldn't stop them. Face it, Mom, you're not protecting me, you're controlling me, and it's over. How dare you speak to me like that? She turned to the stunned family members. Can't you see what's happening? She's turned against me, her own mother. No, Mom. You turned against me the moment you decided I couldn't be trusted with my own life. Soleil squeezed my hand under the table as Mom stormed out of the dining room. The sound of her heels on the stairs echoed through the silent house. Dad stared at the bank statements, his face ashen. I had no idea. I know, Dad. I stood up, gathering my things. But now everyone does. As I walked out, leaving the wreckage of Mom's perfect family dinner behind, I heard Aunt Claire whisper, just like her mother, always has to be in control. But she was wrong. I wasn't like my mother at all. I was something she never expected me to be. Free. The letter arrived 3 days after the disastrous family dinner. Heavy cream paper, Mom's precise handwriting on the envelope. I opened it at my desk while Hector watched with concern. "Dear Margaret," I read aloud, "I've transferred the full amount from the secondary account back to your primary account. I trust this resolves any misunderstandings between us. We can discuss your temporary emotional state when you're feeling more rational. Love, Mother." Hector whistled. Temporary emotional state. Classic Mom. She still thinks she can spin this. I crumpled the letter and threw it in the trash. But at least she returned the money. My phone rang. Dad's number. I put it on speaker. "Hey, Dad. Margaret, we need to talk about your mother." His voice sounded tired. "She's not eating, barely sleeping. Says she's lost her daughter. She lost me the moment she decided to steal from me. She says she was investing it for your future." Dad, stop defending her. I shared a look with Hector, who nodded encouragingly. "Did you know she's been calling my clients, trying to sabotage my business?" A long pause. "She mentioned being concerned about your company's stability." "The company that's about to close $1 million deal?" I pulled up our latest contract on my screen. "The one that's been featured in 3 business magazines this month?" I don't understand how things got so bad between you two. Ask her about the doctor's appointment she tried to force me into. Ask her about monitoring my credit score, my phone, my entire life. Better yet, ask her why she really kept that money hidden." The office door opened, and Soleil burst in, waving her phone. "You need to see this." "Dad, I have to go. Just think about what I said." I hung up and turned to Soleil. "What's wrong?" She thrust her phone at me. On the screen was a social media post from Mom. "Heartbroken mother seeking advice. My daughter has fallen under the influence of manipulative business partners. How do I protect her from herself?" The post had hundreds of comments, mostly from her country club friends and social circle, all sympathizing with her plight. "She's trying to control the narrative," Hector said, reading over my shoulder. "Look at the comments." Soleil scrolled down. "Poor Roslyn, such a devoted mother. These young people think they know everything. Maybe she needs professional help." My hands shook with rage. She's making me look unstable, setting up her defense in case I go public with what she did. The phone on my desk rang. Our biggest potential client. "Ms. Emerson, we've received some concerning information about your company's background." I put on my most professional voice. "What kind of information?" "Well, someone claiming to be your mother called our board. She raised questions about your mental state and financial reliability." I muted the phone. "Hector, get me the latest campaign metrics." "Soleil, the press coverage files." Unmuting. "I understand your concerns. Please allow me to email you our current performance data, press coverage, and client testimonials. Would you also like to schedule a video call with our entire team?" 20 minutes later, crisis averted. I slumped in my chair. "She's not going to stop," Soleil said quietly. "No, she's not." I sat up straight, decision made. "Which is why we're going to end this, once and for all." "What are you thinking?" Hector asked. "Mom's birthday gala is next week, the biggest social event of her year. Everyone who matters to her will be there." Soleil's eyes widened. "You wouldn't." "I would. And I will." I pulled up my email. "Time to RSVP yes to that party invitation." "Margaret," Hector said carefully. "Are you sure? This could get ugly." "It's already ugly." "But Mom's playing by old rules. Whispered rumors, social manipulation, careful appearances. I'm going to change the game." I drafted a quick email to our lawyer. "Need to discuss options for full financial disclosure at a public event." "She'll never forgive you," Soleil warned. "I'm not looking for forgiveness. I'm looking for freedom. And sometimes," I hit send on the email, "freedom comes at a price." My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Delighted you'll attend my birthday celebration. Wear the blue dress. It's more appropriate than your business attire." I showed it to Soleil and Hector. "One last time, she's trying to dress me up like her perfect doll." "So what are you going to wear?" Soleil asked. I smiled, thinking of the power suit I'd just bought. Crimson red, sharp as a blade, something unforgettable. Because this time, when I walked into one of Mom's perfect parties, I wouldn't be playing the role she'd assigned me. I'd be playing by my own rules, and the grand finale would be one her precious social circle would never forget. The country club ballroom sparkled with Mom's signature perfectionism. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, and champagne flowing freely. I stood at the entrance, the red power suit drawing disapproving glances from her social circle. Margaret, Mom's voice carried across the room. You didn't wear the dress I suggested. Happy birthday, Mom. I kissed her cheek, feeling her stiffen at the contact. Don't worry, I'm dressed perfectly for my presentation. Presentation? Her smile faltered. There's no presentation on the schedule. There is now. I nodded to Hector, who was setting up a laptop and projector at the side of the room. Whatever you're planning. She grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. Don't you dare make a scene at my party. You mean like the scene you made calling my clients? Or posting about my mental state on social media? Her fingers released me as other guests approached. Rosalind, darling. Mrs. Peterson air-kissed Mom's cheeks. What a lovely evening. Though I'm surprised you're allowing business presentations at your birthday celebration. Oh, she's not allowing anything, I said sweetly. This is happening whether she likes it or not. I walked away, leaving Mom to damage control. Soleil met me by the bar, looking stunning in a black cocktail dress. Everything's ready, she whispered. Dad's here too. I spotted him across the room, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. He caught my eye and gave a small nod. After our last phone call, I'd sent him copies of everything. The bank statements, Mom's interference with my business, all of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Hector's voice carried through the sound system. If I could have your attention, please. The crowd turned, champagne glasses in hand. Mom stood frozen by the roses, her perfect mask slipping. As many of you know, I took the microphone. My mother has always been passionate about financial education, about teaching the value of money management. Appreciative murmurs from the crowd. Mom took a step forward, but Soleil smoothly intercepted her. So tonight, I'd like to share some lessons I've learned about money. I clicked to the first slide, a bank statement showing the hidden account. Lesson 1. Always know where your money is going, even if someone else is hiding it from you. Gasps rippled through the room. Mom's face went white. For those in the back, this is an account containing nearly $400,000 of my earnings, money that was redirected without my knowledge or consent. Margaret, stop this immediately. Mom's voice shook. Lesson 2, I continued, clicking to the next slide. Screenshots of her social media posts and emails to my clients. Be careful who you trust with your financial information. Some people might use it against you. Is this true, Rosalind? Mrs. Peterson's voice cut through the murmurs. Did you really hide her money? I was protecting her. Mom surged forward. She wasn't ready to manage it herself. Really? I clicked again, showing our company's latest valuation. Because in just 3 months, that unstable daughter you're so worried about built this, a 7-figure company, without your help or permission. The room erupted in whispers. I saw Dad put his head in his hands. Lesson 3, success is the best revenge. I turned directly to Mom. You can't control me anymore. Not my money, not my business, not my life. How dare you? Mom grabbed the microphone. After everything I've done for you. You mean everything you've done to me? I yanked the microphone back. You didn't protect me, you imprisoned me. Every dollar I earned, every decision I made, had to go through you. Well, guess what? I'm done. Margaret, please. She reached for me, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. You're my daughter. I love you. No, Mom. You love controlling me. There's a difference. I turned back to the stunned crowd. Final lesson. Sometimes the people who claim to protect you are the ones you need protection from. Clicking to the last slide, I displayed the transfer receipt from the hidden account. Thank you, Mom, for returning my money. Consider it your birthday gift to me, financial freedom. The room was dead silent. Mom stood there, mascara running, as her perfect world crumbled around her. Oh, and one more thing. I pulled an envelope from my suit pocket. This is a restraining order. Stay away from my business. Stay away from my clients. Stay away from me. I placed it on the gift table and walked toward the exit. As I passed Dad, he grabbed my hand. Was this necessary? He whispered. Yes, I said firmly. It was. At the door, I turned back one last time. Mom had collapsed into a chair, her society friends awkwardly patting her shoulders while shooting scandalized glances my way. Happy birthday, Mom, I called out. Thanks for teaching me everything I know about control. Then I walked out into the night, leaving the wreckage of her perfect party behind me, feeling lighter than I had in 27 years. The morning after the party, I sat in my office, watching the sun rise over the city. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing with messages, mostly from relatives choosing sides in the aftermath. I ignored them all. The door opened, and Hector walked in with coffee. You're here early. Never left. I gestured to the couch where I'd spent the night. Didn't want to go home. About that, he handed me a coffee. Your dad's in the lobby. I nodded, not surprised. Send him up. Dad looked older than he had last night, his bow tie hanging loose around his neck like he hadn't bothered changing after the party. Your mother's a mess, he said without preamble. I know. She checked herself into a wellness center this morning. That I hadn't expected. Her choice or yours? Hers. He sat heavily in the chair across from my desk. She said she needs to understand why she did what she did, why she couldn't let you go. And what do you think? I think I failed you both. His voice cracked. I saw what was happening, the control, the manipulation, but I told myself she knew best, that she was protecting you. You weren't the only one she fooled. A knock at the door interrupted us. Soleil poked her head in. Sorry, but you need to see this. She handed me her tablet. On the screen was Mom's social media page. Her latest post read, "To my daughter, I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better." She posted it an hour ago, Soleil said quietly. Dad leaned forward. What are you going to do? Work. I handed the tablet back to Soleil. I have a company to run. Margaret. No, Dad. I'm done with her games. Even her apologies are public performances. Then why are you crying? I touched my cheek, surprised to find it wet. Hector silently passed me a tissue. Because it hurts, I admitted. Because part of me still wants my mom. But I can't have her without the control, the manipulation, the constant need to own every piece of me. Maybe the wellness center will help, Dad suggested. Maybe. But I'm not putting my life on hold to find out. My computer chimed with an email notification. The $1 million contract, signed and finalized. Despite everything Mom had tried, we'd landed it. Speaking of life, I turned the screen to show Dad. Want to see what your daughter built? For the next hour, I walked him through our business model, our success stories, our growth plans. His eyes lit up with understanding and pride. You really did it, he said. Everything your mother said you couldn't do. We did it, Hector corrected, gesturing between us. As equals, no control, no manipulation, just trust and hard work. Dad stood up slowly. I should go check on your mother. Dad? I called as he reached the door. Tell her I'm okay, better than okay. And if she ever really wants to talk, not control, not manipulate, just talk, she knows where to find me. After he left, Soleil perched on my desk. You're not actually going to forgive her, are you? No, I said, turning to the window. But I'm not going to let her control me with guilt either. She made her choices. I made mine. Speaking of choices, Hector pulled up our calendar. The business magazine wants to interview you. Rising Star Under 30 feature. I smiled, thinking of Mom reading that article in her wellness center. Schedule it. And the real estate agent called. Soleil added, that condo you liked is available. Perfect. I stood up, straightening my suit. Time to move out of mom's house for good. You know what this means? Hector grinned. Housewarming party. With no assigned seating, Soleil added. No dress code, I continued. And definitely no financial lectures. We all said together, laughing. My phone buzzed one last time. Another message from Mom. I understand now why you did what you did. I hope someday you'll understand why I did what I did too. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up our company's latest campaign draft. Ready to change some more lives? I asked my team. Always. They replied, and there it was, the truth I'd been fighting for all along. Success wasn't about proving Mom wrong. It was about proving myself right. About building something real, something mine, with people who supported me without trying to control me. I looked around my office, at Hector reviewing contracts, Soleil planning our next move, the city sprawling beyond my window full of possibilities, and felt truly, completely free. Not because I'd won the war with Mom, but because I'd finally stopped fighting it. This was my life now, my choices, my future, and it was beautiful.
The blue glow of my laptop screen illuminated my face as I sat cross-legged on my apartment floor at 3 a.m., surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered sticky notes. Another successful code deployment, another step closer to my secret empire. I'm Nina, and I've been living a double life for the past 3 years. My phone buzzed. Dad. Again. Nina, where are those quarterly projections? The board meetings in 4 hours. His voice carried that familiar edge of disappointment. Just finishing them now, I lied, quickly minimizing my startup's dashboard and pulling up the family business spreadsheets. You'll have them in 20 minutes. Make it 10, and don't forget the strategy meeting at 9. Before I could respond, he hung up. Typical Mason Clayton, all business, no pleasantries, even with his own daughter. I rubbed my eyes and switched screens again, sending a quick message to my development team in Singapore. Great work, everyone. Launch is still on track for next month. My other phone, the one my family doesn't know about, lit up with a message from Reed. You can't keep burning the candle at both ends, Nina. Something's gotta give. I smiled despite my exhaustion. Reed had been my confidant since we were kids, the only one who truly understood why I built this secret life. Watch me, I texted back. The sun was rising when I finally crawled into bed, only to be jolted awake 2 hours later by my mother's incoming video call. Darling, you look terrible. Desiree's perfectly made-up face filled my screen. Have you been staying up late again? You know how important family breakfast is to your father. Sorry, Mom. Lost track of time working on those projections. Well, at least you're dedicated to the business, unlike last month when you missed that crucial supplier meeting. Her guilt trip arrows always hit their mark. Tatum had to handle it alone, poor thing. I bit back a retort about Tatum's supposed competence. My sister, the golden child, who'd never questioned our parents' plans for our lives. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I promised, already heading to the shower. The Clayton Textiles building loomed over me as I pulled into the parking lot. My real office, the one where my tech company was revolutionizing supply chain management, was a modern co-working space downtown. This place, with its dated architecture and fading sign, felt like a prison. There's my little sister, Tatum called out as I entered the conference room. Finally decided to grace us with your presence? I forced a smile, taking my seat beside Paxton, our business consultant, who gave me a knowing look. Sometimes I wondered if he suspected something. Now that we're all here, Dad began, let's discuss the upcoming quarter. Nina, your projections? I connected my laptop and presented the numbers I'd prepared in those precious 10 minutes before dawn. Graphs, forecasts, all carefully crafted to show modest improvement while hiding how much I'd actually been helping behind the scenes with my tech expertise. These numbers seem optimistic, Tatum challenged, leaning forward. What's your basis for this growth projection? Before I could respond, my other phone vibrated in my pocket. Harper, my biggest investor, was calling. I ignored it, but my heart raced. Harper never called unless it was important. The Asian market is showing promising signs, I explained, keeping my voice steady. If we implement the new inventory management system I proposed. More technology? Dad interrupted, shaking his head. Nina, we've discussed this. Our business was built on relationships, not computers. I gripped my pen tighter, thinking of my own company's valuation, now approaching 9 figures. All built on the very technology my father dismissed. The meeting dragged on, and I felt my other phone buzzing persistently. Finally, I excused myself to the bathroom and called Harper back. Nina, where have you been? The Series B investors are ready to move. They want to meet tomorrow. My heart stopped. This was it. The opportunity we'd been working toward. I can't just drop everything, I whispered, checking under the stalls for eavesdroppers. My family. Listen to me, Harper cut in. You've built something extraordinary. Are you really going to let your family's outdated expectations hold you back? It's time to choose. As I ended the call, my mother's voice carried down the hallway. Nina, the meeting's waiting. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, straightening my blazer. One life built on lies and family obligation, another built on innovation and freedom. Something had to give. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Reed. Remember who you really are. I took a deep breath and headed back to the conference room, my decision made. Soon, they'd all know exactly who I really was. The next morning, I arrived early at Clayton Textiles, knowing Dad had called an emergency family meeting. The familiar scent of coffee and leather couldn't mask the tension in the air as I pushed open his office door. Right on time, Dad said, not looking up from his papers. Take a seat. Tatum was already there, perfectly poised in her designer suit. Mom sat beside her, both of them wearing identical expressions of superiority that made my skin crawl. I've been thinking about the future of this company, Dad began, finally meeting my eyes. And it's time we discussed succession planning. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Harper about the investors' meeting I was missing. I silenced it without looking. Nina, you've shown remarkable improvement lately. Those projections yesterday. He paused, shuffling papers on his desk. They made me realize you might be ready for more responsibility. Tatum's sharp intake of breath didn't go unnoticed. Dad, we discussed this. I'm the one who's been here consistently. And you'll remain COO. He cut her off. But Nina has a fresh perspective we need. I'm appointing her as Director of Operations, effective immediately. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of dismissing my ideas, he was finally offering me power, just as I was ready to reveal my separate life. Mason, are you sure? Mom's perfectly manicured hand reached for his arm. Nina's been so distracted lately. I've noticed her dedication, Paxton spoke up from the corner where he'd been quietly observing. I hadn't even noticed him come in. She's brought some innovative solutions to our inventory problems. If they only knew those innovative solutions came from my own company's software. What do you say, Nina? Dad leaned forward, his expression earnest for once. This is your chance to prove yourself to the family. My phone buzzed again. This time I glanced down. Reed. Harper says the investors won't wait. It's now or never. I started, then caught Tatum's glare. Can I have 24 hours to think about it? Dad's face darkened. This isn't a negotiation, Nina. This is your birthright, your responsibility. Responsibility? I couldn't help but laugh. Like when you shut down my tech proposals 3 years ago, or when you said computers would never replace handshakes. Here we go again. Tatum rolled her eyes. Nina's Teenage Rebellion, Part 2. I'm not a teenager anymore, I shot back, standing up. And maybe I have other plans. Other plans? Mom's voice dripped with concern. Darling, what could be more important than family? My phone buzzed a third time. Harper now. Investors are asking questions. Should I tell them you're not coming? Nina, Dad's voice softened dangerously. Think very carefully about your next move. This company has supported our family for 3 generations. Paxton cleared his throat. If I may, Nina's technical expertise could be exactly what Clayton Textiles needs right now. The market is changing. Stay out of this, Tatum snapped. This is family business. I looked at each of them. Dad's stern expectation, Mom's manipulative concern, Tatum's barely concealed hostility. Then I thought about my own company, my team waiting for leadership, the investors ready to take us global. I'll do it, I heard myself say. Excellent! Dad stood up, reaching for the contracts he'd obviously prepared in advance. Sign here and… On one condition, I interrupted. I need 3 days to prepare. Then I want to present my complete vision for the company's future at the board meeting. Tatum scoffed. Since when do you make conditions? Let her speak, Paxton interjected, earning another glare from my sister. Dad studied me carefully. 3 days? What are you planning, Nina? Trust me, I said, meeting his gaze steadily. You'll want to hear what I have to say. As I left the office, Reed was waiting in the lobby. Well? They took the bait, I whispered, hurrying him toward the exit. 3 days to prepare my presentation. Is Harper still at the investors' meeting? Stalling them as we speak, he grinned. Ready to blow their minds? More than ready. I checked my watch. Let's go show those investors what we've built. Then we'll show my family exactly what they've been missing. Nina! Tatum's voice rang out behind us. I turned to see her striding across the lobby. Whatever you're planning, don't you dare embarrass this family. I smiled sweetly. Wouldn't dream of it, sis. See you at the board meeting. As Reed and I stepped into the elevator, I caught Paxton watching us with intense interest. He nodded slightly, and I had a feeling he'd just figured out exactly what was coming. 3 days, Reed muttered as the doors closed. Think that's enough time to prepare your revenge? Trust me, I said, pulling up my company's latest valuation on my phone. I've been preparing for this moment for 3 years. The investors' meeting went exactly as planned. I stood in Harper's downtown office afterward, still buzzing from their enthusiasm, when my work phone rang. Dad again. The supplier meeting starts in 20 minutes, he barked. Where are you? I checked my watch. 2 p.m. already. On my way, I said, gathering my things. Traffic's terrible. Just like old times. Harper smirked as I ended the call. How long are you going to keep juggling? 2 more days, I replied, pulling on my jacket. Just need to keep the plates spinning until the board meeting. Nina! Harper's voice turned serious. These investors aren't going to wait forever. They want to announce the deal this week. Perfect timing, then. I headed for the door, but Harper blocked my path. Are you sure you want to do it this way? There are more diplomatic approaches. Diplomatic? I laughed. Like when my father diplomatically told me my tech ideas would ruin the company? Or when Tatum diplomatically suggested I wasn't committed enough? Point taken. Harper stepped aside. Just remember, revenge might feel good in the moment, but this isn't about revenge, I interrupted. It's about finally being honest. I made it to Clayton Textiles just as the supplier meeting was starting. Tatum shot me a disapproving look as I slipped into my seat. As I was saying, our main supplier continued, prices are going up across the board. Without significant changes, we'll have to increase our rates by 30%. Dad's face turned red. 30%? That'll kill us! If I may, I spoke up, pulling out my laptop. I've been working on something that might help. Here we go with the computers again, Tatum muttered. I pulled up a demonstration of my company's software, carefully branded with Clayton Textiles colors for this presentation. This system could optimize our supply chain, reducing costs by at least 40%. The supplier leaned forward, interested. That's impressive. Where did you develop this? I've been working on it in my spare time, I said smoothly, ignoring Reed's text that just popped up. Your spare time? LOL. Implementation would take months, Tatum argued. We need solutions now. Actually, Paxton spoke up from the corner, I've seen similar systems deployed in weeks. Nina, this is remarkably sophisticated for a side project. I met his knowing gaze. He definitely suspected something. We'll discuss this later, Dad cut in. Right now, we need to focus on immediate solutions. My other phone buzzed. A message from my development team about a critical bug fix needed before the board meeting. I had to get out of there. Excuse me, I stood up. Emergency call I have to take. Sit down, Dad commanded. Whatever it is can wait. It really can't. I gathered my things. But I've left detailed notes about potential cost-saving measures on your desk. As I hurried out, I heard Tatum. See what I mean about commitment? I found an empty conference room and pulled out my other laptop. 20 minutes into debugging with my team, the door opened. Paxton. Interesting software you showed in there, he said, closing the door behind him. Reminds me of something I saw at a tech conference last month. Something from a promising startup. I kept typing. Really? What startup? I think you know exactly which one. He sat down across from me. The question is, does your family? I finally looked up. Are you going to tell them? That's not my place. He leaned back. But Nina, they're going to find out soon enough. This company is in trouble, more than they're admitting. Your father's pride won't let him see it, but we need exactly the kind of innovation you're bringing. Just not from me, right? I closed my laptop. Not from the rebellious daughter? You might be surprised. Paxton stood up. Your father assigned me to evaluate the company's future viability. My report is due at the board meeting, the same meeting where you're presenting. My phone buzzed again. Harper. Investors are ready to sign. Need you here ASAP. Look, I said to Paxton, whatever you think you know. I know you're trying to help in your own way. He headed for the door. Just make sure your revenge doesn't burn bridges you might need later. After he left, I called Reed. We might have a problem. Paxton knows. How much? Enough to be dangerous. I started packing up my things. But maybe also enough to be useful. Nina? Reed's voice was cautious. What are you thinking? I smiled, a new plan forming. I'm thinking it's time to adjust our presentation for the board meeting. How quickly can you get me the company's complete financial records? The ones showing how your software secretly saved them millions last year? Already on it. Perfect. I headed for the elevator, ignoring another missed call from Dad. Time to show them exactly how much they need the daughter they've been dismissing. The day before the board meeting, everything started unraveling. I sat in my startup's office, rehearsing my presentation with Harper, when both my phones exploded with notifications. Nina, emergency at the factory! Tatum's voice crackled through one speaker. The new shipment is completely wrong, and the client's threatening to pull their biggest order. Before I could respond, my other phone rang, my lead developer. Boss, the server's down. We need to postpone tomorrow's launch. I pressed my fingers to my temples. How long to fix it? 8 hours minimum. We need you here. Harper watched me with concern as I ended the call. The board meeting's tomorrow. You can't be in 2 places at once. Watch me. I grabbed my laptop. I can handle the server issue remotely while... My mother burst into the office. I froze. How did she even know where to find me? Nina, thank goodness! She looked around the modern space with obvious distaste. What is this place? Never mind. You need to come home right now. Your father's called an emergency family dinner. Mom, I'm in the middle of... No excuses! She grabbed my arm. The Wellington order is about to collapse. 3 generations of business relationships at stake. And here you are, playing with computers in some startup incubator? Harper stepped forward. Mrs. Clayton, Nina is in an important... And who might you be? Mom's eyes narrowed. Harper James. I'm Nina's business associate. I cut in quickly. Mom, give me 5 minutes to wrap up here. 3 minutes? She snapped. I'm waiting in the car. After she left, Harper turned to me. This is getting out of hand. I know. I started packing up, but I just need to hold it together until tomorrow. Your mother showing up here changes things. What if she tells your father? My developer called again. Boss, we're losing clients by the minute. I ended the call and looked at Harper desperately. Can you handle the server crisis? Just until I deal with this family thing? Nina, she warned, you're about to lose everything you've built here. I'll lose everything either way if I don't show up tonight. I headed for the door. Just keep it running for a few hours. The family dinner was exactly the ambush I expected. Dad sat at the head of the table, face like thunder. Tatum paced behind him. The Wellington order represents 30% of our annual revenue. Dad began without preamble. Where were you? Working on a solution, I replied, pulling out my laptop. If we implement the new system, enough! He slammed his hand on the table. This isn't about computers, Nina. This is about loyalty, about family. Mason, Mom touched his arm. Remember your blood pressure. Blood pressure? Tatum scoffed. What about our blood? Our family name? While I've been trying to save the Wellington account, Nina's been playing entrepreneur in some startup office. My phone buzzed. Harper. Server crisis worse. Need decision now. Nina, Dad's voice softened dangerously. Tomorrow you're presenting to the board, showing them you're ready to help lead this company. But right now, I'm not sure you understand what that means. I understand perfectly, I stood up. And tomorrow, you'll understand too. Sit down. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. You ungrateful child. After everything we've sacrificed for you. Sacrificed? I laughed. You mean like sacrificing my dreams? My ambitions? Everything I wanted to build? The only thing you're building, Tatum spat, is a case for why you don't deserve any part of this company. My phone buzzed again. Read this time. Investors getting nervous about tomorrow. Harper can't hold them much longer. Nina, Dad stood up slowly. Whatever you're planning for tomorrow's presentation, remember this. You're a Clayton. That means something in this industry. You're right, Dad. I gathered my things. It does mean something, and tomorrow you'll find out exactly what. If you walk out that door, Mom called after me, don't bother coming to the board meeting. I turned back one last time. Oh, I'll be there, and I promise you, it's going to be a presentation none of you will ever forget. In my car, I called Harper. How bad is the server situation? Bad, but fixable if you come now. I started the engine. I'll be there in 10 minutes. And Harper, call the investors. Tell them tomorrow's show is going to be even better than they expected. What are you planning? I smiled, thinking of my family's faces around that dinner table. They want to talk about loyalty? Fine. Tomorrow they'll learn what happens when you push away the one person who could have saved everything. Nina, Harper's voice was worried. Don't let anger drive this. It's not anger anymore, I replied, pulling onto the highway. It's justice. The morning of the board meeting, I arrived an hour early to set up. The server crisis had kept me up all night, but adrenaline coursed through my veins as I connected my laptop to the projector. Need help with that? Reed's voice made me jump. What are you doing here? I whispered, glancing at the door. Moral support. He handed me a coffee. Also, Harper sent me. The investors are in the building. What? I nearly dropped my laptop. They're supposed to be at our office. They wanted to see the whole show. He grinned. Can't blame them. It's not every day they get to witness a corporate coup. It's not a coup, I protested. It's… Well. Tatum's voice cut through the room. Secret meetings before the big presentation? She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Behind her, Paxton appeared, carrying his own stack of documents. Just getting set up, I said smoothly. Reed was helping with the tech. Of course he was. Tatum's eyes narrowed. Always hiding behind computers, aren't you, Nina? Just like when we were kids and you'd lock yourself in your room with your precious coding books. Those coding books built something pretty impressive, Reed shot back. Maybe if you'd paid attention. Reed, I warned. Not now. Paxton cleared his throat. The board members are arriving. And Nina, your parents are looking for you. I found them in Dad's office. Mom was adjusting his tie while he reviewed his notes. There you are, Mom said. Darling, about last night. Save it. I held up my hand. Everything that needs to be said will be said in the boardroom. Nina, Dad's voice was unusually quiet. Whatever you're planning, remember that some words can't be taken back. For a moment, I saw genuine concern in his eyes. But then I remembered all the times he'd dismissed my ideas, all the years of manipulation and control. I remember everything, Dad. That's the problem. The boardroom filled quickly. Ancient Mr. Patterson, who'd known my grandfather. Sarah from legal, looking nervous. The Wellington client representatives, there to discuss the troubled order. And in the back, trying to be inconspicuous, Harper and the investors. Before we begin, Dad stood at the head of the table. I want to announce some changes. My daughter Nina has agreed to take on a larger role in our company's future. Polite applause. Tatum's face could have curdled milk. And now, he continued, Nina will present her vision for modernizing our operations. I connected my laptop, heart pounding. On my screen, 2 presentations waited. The safe one they expected, and the truth they never saw coming. Actually, I said, standing up, I'd like to start with some numbers you need to see. I clicked, and gasps filled the room. On the screen, Clayton Textile's real financial situation appeared. The losses, the outdated systems, the failing contracts. And next to it, the revenue that had been secretly generated by my software over the past year. What is this? Dad demanded. This, I clicked again, revealing my company's logo, is how your daughter's little computer hobby has been keeping your company alive. The room erupted. Tatum jumped to her feet, Mom pressed a hand to her chest, and the board members started whispering furiously. You see, I continued over the chaos, while you were clinging to handshakes and tradition, I built something that's about to revolutionize the entire industry. And those improvements you've been praising in our supply chain, that was all my software, my company. Your company? Dad's face had gone pale. Harper stood up in the back. Perhaps this is a good time to introduce myself properly. Harper James, lead investor in Nina's technology firm, currently valued at, she named a number that made Mr. Patterson drop his coffee cup. Impossible, Tatum sputtered. You've been here working for us. No, I corrected her. I've been saving you. But now it's time to decide. Does Clayton Textiles want to enter the modern age as a partner in my success, or stick to its outdated ways and fade into irrelevance? Partner? Dad's voice was dangerous. You dare to come in here and— Mason, Paxton interrupted, standing up. I think you should look at these numbers carefully. What Nina's built, it's extraordinary, and exactly what this company needs. The Wellington representatives were nodding. Even Sarah looked impressed. So, I faced my father directly. What's it going to be? Partnership or pride? The room fell silent. In that moment, as my father stared at the evidence of his daughter's secret success, I finally felt the weight of 3 years of deception lift from my shoulders. Reed squeezed my hand under the table as Dad slowly sat down, looking at the numbers again. Tell us more, he said finally, his voice rough. Tell us everything. Everything, I smiled, clicking to the next slide. Let's start with how my software saved the Wellington account 3 times this year alone. That's a lie, Tatum shot up again. I handled those crisis situations myself. Did you? I pulled up the data. Or did you follow the suggestions that mysteriously appeared in your inbox? The ones that always seemed to solve the problem? The Wellington representatives leaned forward, interested. Is this true, Tatum? Before she could respond, I continued. My software detected supply chain issues weeks before they became critical. Every time Tatum saved the day, it was because my system had already identified the solution. Enough! Dad's fist hit the table. You've made your point about the technology, but this deception, this secret company, deception! Harper stood again. Nina's company is one of the fastest growing tech startups in the industry. Your daughter is a CEO who's revolutionizing supply chain management while simultaneously keeping your company afloat. Most parents would be proud. Proud? Mom's voice cracked. She betrayed us, our own daughter, working behind our backs. Like you worked behind mine, I interrupted. When you and Dad conspired to shut down my tech proposals? When you manipulated me into staying here instead of taking that Silicon Valley job? We were protecting you, Mom cried. No, Paxton spoke up. You were protecting yourselves, your way of doing business, and it nearly cost you everything. He opened his folder. My audit shows Clayton Textiles would have failed 6 months ago without Nina's invisible interventions. The board members started murmuring again. Mr. Patterson looked like he might faint. Show them the Wellington numbers, Reed suggested quietly. I clicked to the next slide. This is what your order fulfillment looked like before my software. Red lines and failing metrics filled the screen. And this is after. The transformation was dramatic. Remarkable, one of the Wellington reps breathed. We'd actually been considering moving our business elsewhere until these recent improvements. You see, Dad? I faced him directly. Everything you fought against, the technology, the innovation, the change, it's what saved your legacy. I just had to do it in secret because you wouldn't listen. I'm listening now, he said quietly. Are you? I challenged. Because here's what happens next. My investors are ready to take my company public. We're valued at 9 figures and growing. Clayton Textiles can either merge with us as a subsidiary, implementing our technology officially, or what? Tatum demanded. Or we pull our software out completely, see how well you do without it. The room erupted again. Board members shouting, Mom nearly fainting, Tatum turning purple with rage. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. This is your family. Watch me. I pulled up the kill switch screen on my laptop. 1 click, and everything goes back to your old systems. Think you can handle that Wellington order without my tech? The Wellington reps shifted uncomfortably. Mason, Paxton interjected. This is actually a tremendous opportunity. Nina's offering a way to modernize the company while keeping it in the family. Just not in the way we expected. Dad stood up slowly, all eyes on him. He walked to the window, staring out at the city where his father had built this company from nothing. All those late nights, he said finally, the missed family dinners, the emergency calls. You weren't being irresponsible. No, I said softly. I was building something important, something that could save both our legacies. He turned back to face me. And now you're giving us an ultimatum. I'm giving you a choice, I corrected. The same choice you never gave me. Harper stepped forward with a contract. The terms are fair, more than fair, actually. Clayton Textiles retains its name and core business while gaining access to cutting-edge technology and a significant stake in a rapidly growing tech company. Dad took the contract, studying it. The room held its breath. Nina, he said finally, you've turned into quite the businesswoman. I learned from the best, I replied, even if I had to do it my own way. He picked up a pen, then paused. 1 condition. What's that? You explain to me, in detail, exactly how you pulled this off. Because clearly, he actually smiled slightly. I have a lot to learn from my daughter. I glanced at Tatum, who looked like she'd swallowed a lemon, then at Mom, who was dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Deal, I said, extending my hand. Dad looked at my offered handshake, then at the contract, then back at me. No, he said, putting down the pen. Not with a handshake this time. My heart sank. This time, he continued, walking around the table, I think my daughter deserves a hug. The next morning, I sat in my father's office, our office now, surrounded by boxes of financial records. The merger paperwork was spread across the desk, waiting for final signatures. So this line of code here, Dad pointed at my laptop screen, that's what caught the shipping errors? Before they even happened, I explained. The AI predicts problems based on historical data. Fascinating. He actually looked impressed. And you built all this yourself? She had help, Reed said, walking in with coffee, though she'll never admit it. Reed, Dad acknowledged him with a nod. I suppose I owe you an apology, too. All those times I thought you were a bad influence. I was, Reed grinned. Just not in the way you thought. The door burst open. Tatum stormed in, waving papers. This is ridiculous. Have you seen these merger terms? Nina gets control of both companies' technology decisions. Of course she does. Harper followed her in. She's the one who built the technology. But I'm the COO, Tatum protested. You can't just… Actually, Dad interrupted, we can, and we will. Sit down, Tatum. It's time we had a family meeting. A real one. Mom appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. Mason, are you sure about this? More sure than I've been about anything in years. He gestured for everyone to sit. Nina, show them what you showed me this morning. I pulled up our real-time analytics dashboard. This is Clayton Textiles right now. Every order, every shipment, every potential problem tracked and solved automatically. But where's the personal touch? Mom asked. The relationships your father built? Right here. I clicked to another screen. The software doesn't replace relationships. It strengthens them. Watch this. I demonstrated how the system had flagged a potential issue with a long-time customer and automatically suggested solutions based on their 30-year history with us. That's actually impressive, Tatum admitted reluctantly. It gets better, Reed added. Show them the expansion projections. I pulled up the growth forecast. Even Harper let out a low whistle. She hadn't seen these numbers yet. With the merger, I explained, we can scale both companies simultaneously. Clayton Textiles becomes the perfect test case for my software, and the software makes Clayton Textiles an industry leader in modernization. But what about my role? Tatum asked, quieter now. You know this industry better than anyone, I said. I need that knowledge. The software can predict problems, but it takes human expertise to implement solutions. That's where you come in. You mean, work together? Shocking concept, isn't it? Reed muttered. Harper elbowed him. Listen, Dad stood up. I made a mistake years ago. I was so focused on preserving the past that I couldn't see the future sitting right in front of me. Nina, I'm sorry. Dad, I started, but he held up his hand. Let me finish. You didn't just build a successful company. You saved ours while we were too stubborn to save ourselves. That kind of vision, that's what Clayton Textiles was built on. Your grandfather would have been proud. Mom dabbed at her eyes. But all the sneaking around, the secrets. Would you have listened if I'd been honest? I asked. Really listened? The silence answered for them. Well, Paxton appeared in the doorway. The board has officially approved the merger. All we need now are the family signatures. I picked up a pen and held it out to Tatum. Partners? She stared at the pen for a long moment. You really think we can work together, after everything? I think we can be stronger together than we ever were apart. I smiled. Besides, someone needs to keep me from getting too caught up in the code. She actually laughed at that, taking the pen. Fine, partners. But I want to learn how the software works. Deal. I turned to Mom. What about you? She looked at Dad, then back at me. Will you at least come to family dinner once a week? No laptops allowed? As long as you promise to let me teach you how to video chat properly. It's not my fault those things are so complicated. But she was smiling as she signed. Dad took the pen last. Nina, your grandfather built this company on a handshake and a dream. You've built something even bigger on code and courage. I couldn't be prouder to sign this. As he wrote his name, Harper cleared her throat. Not to break up the family moment, but the press is waiting downstairs. They want to meet the tech prodigy who's revolutionizing the textile industry. Ready to go public? Reed asked. In every sense of the word? I looked around at my family, really looked at them. Dad, finally seeing me clearly. Mom, trying to hide her pride. Tatum, already studying the software manual. This wasn't the revenge I'd planned. It was something better. Actually, I said, I think we should do this together, as a family. Together, Dad agreed, putting his arm around me. It's about time. The press conference ended with thunderous applause. As cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, I felt Dad's steady hand on my shoulder. And that's how you handle the media, he whispered, guiding me off the stage. Though I have to admit, you didn't need much coaching. She's a natural, Harper called from the sidelines. The investors are ecstatic. Stock's already up 12%. In the green room, Tatum was glued to her tablet, watching our numbers climb. This is insane! We've gotten more orders in the past hour than we usually get in a month. Can the software handle it? Mom asked, trying to sound casual while obviously still struggling with the technical aspects. Watch this, I said, pulling up the dashboard on the big screen. See how it's already adjusting production schedules, reallocating resources. In English, please, Mom sighed. It means yes, Reed translated, making everyone laugh. Paxton knocked on the door. The Wellington representatives are here. They want to discuss expanding their contract. Send them in, Dad started, but I held up my hand. Actually, Tatum should handle this one. She knows their account better than anyone. Tatum looked up, surprised. Really? Really. The software can crunch the numbers, but you know the people. That's what makes this work. She straightened her jacket, a hint of her old confidence returning. Well, I did handle their account for 5 years. Go, I nudged her. Show them what the new Clayton Textiles can do. As she left with Paxton, Dad turned to me. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. This only works if we all play to our strengths. Speaking of strengths, Harper interrupted, we should discuss the Tokyo expansion. Their market is perfect for... No business talk, Mom declared. We're having a family dinner tonight. A proper one, Nina promised. Did I? I grinned. You did, Reed confirmed. And I'm invited this time. Your mom specifically said so. Only because you promised to teach me how to use that cloud thing, Mom said primly. It's just called the cloud, Mom. Not that cloud thing. Whatever it's called, I want to learn. If my daughters can run a tech empire, surely I can figure out how to save a file. Dad checked his phone. Tatum just closed the Wellington deal. They're tripling their order. The software can handle it, I assured him. I know it can. He put his phone away. Because my daughter built it. Harper cleared her throat. Not to interrupt the family moment, but there's one more thing we need to discuss. The Silicon Valley office? Can wait until tomorrow, I finished. Mom's right. Family dinner first. See, in that case, Reed stood up. I'll go help Tatum wrap up with Wellington. See you at dinner? Actually, Mom linked her arm through his. Why don't you help me set up that cloud thing first? Nina's always too busy to explain it properly. As they left, Dad turned to me. You know, I kept all your old coding books, the ones from when you were a teenager. Found them in the attic last night. You kept them? Of course I did. Even when I was fighting against your dreams, part of me knew you were meant for something bigger than what I had planned. Dad, let me finish. I spent so many years trying to preserve what my father built that I almost destroyed my daughter's future. Can you forgive me for that? I hugged him, breathing in the familiar scent of his aftershave. Already have. Good. He pulled back, eyes suspiciously bright. Because I'm going to need a lot of help understanding all this tech stuff, starting with why my phone keeps telling me I'm out of cloud storage. Not you too, I groaned. Between you and Mom. Hey, if this old dog is going to learn new tricks, he's learning them from the best. Harper poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but Tatum's looking for you both. Something about Mom trying to upload her entire photo collection to a group chat? Oh, God, I laughed. We better go save the cloud from my mother. Nina, Dad caught my arm as we headed out. You did good, kid. Really good. We did good, I corrected him. All of us. Together. As we walked toward the conference room, I could hear Mom arguing with Reed about storage limits, Tatum excitedly explaining the new contract terms to Paxton, and the distant sound of reporters still buzzing about the merger. This wasn't the revenge I'd planned. It wasn't even the success I'd imagined. It was better. It was family. Messy, complicated, and finally real. Ready to face the future? Dad asked. I smiled, thinking of all the battles ahead. Teaching Mom technology, merging our companies, expanding globally. But this time, we'd face them as a family. Ready, I said. Let's go save the cloud.